Welcome everybody to our coverage here of World Cycling Productions 92nd edition of Liege, Bastogne Liege. I'm Phil Liege, alongside me Paul Showing. These are the Belgian Ardennes, and these are some of the top winners of this event over the years. Last year the winner was Alexander Vinokourov, rides now for Liberty Seguros. David Rebellin was the last man to do the double, and it's Alejandro Valverde today, if he wins, will equally do what David Rebellin did back in 2004. It's not a bad day for the 195 riders. As usual, they are assembling in the Place Saint-Lambert down in Liège. And it's a very traditional course, Paul, as the riders go over all of those small mountains, most of them, as we'll see, on the return back from Bastogne. Here's Alexander Vinokourov, champion of Kazakhstan.
Well, last year's winner, and a man who we haven't seen race very much this season, although we did see him training the early part of the season, of course, in Paris-Nice. Alejandro Valverde, fresh off the win in the Flèche Wallonne, is a man who will try, as you say, and do the double. It'll be a little bit difficult, though, because it's a slightly different motivated field here for Liège, Bastogne Liège. There you can see the champion of Luxembourg.
Yeah. Frank Schleck, and this is Jens Voigt here, marching up. Always a great guy to have around. Jens hasn't won a race this year, but he managed to win 9 times last year in the CSC colours. And he is a high flyer at the moment. On form, he's got a good team. Well, the man holding the baby is Michele Bartoli. The man looking at it is Ivan Basso. Bartoli, the winner of this race in 1997 and 1998. And big Axel Merckx here, signing in with the Belgian police.
Well, signing in with the Belgian police. Axel actually saying that this is going to be his last year as a professional cyclist, and that will be rather sad, because I've enjoyed commentating on the name, of course, of the great Merckx family. But there's a lot of riders that started to get themselves motivated for this race. And we're looking here at Peter Sinkovic from the T-Mobile squad. And of course, Philippe Gilbert. Might be a surprise move by Philippe Gilbert. Had a very good start to the season. He's a French-speaking Belgian, so could be very well motivated.
Yes, he's on his own patch here down in the Ardennes. And Danilo De Luca as well for Leaky Gas. And as you can see, great atmosphere here at the start, and the riders in good spirits because the weather looks set to be a rather nice day. Here's the rollout, and we'll get a look at the route that the riders face. For most of them, they've done it all before. They know as the race unwinds, it gets much harder. It's a race that's going to take them in excess of 6 hours to cover. 195 riders facing up to 262 kilometres. A lot further than the midweek Flèche Wallonne. A quick look at the action. I can tell you down there are 26 riders in that breakaway. They've built a big lead over the field. We'll catch up with that in a moment. The gap at the moment is only 2:44. They're beginning to be caught up by the peloton, which has 97 kilometres to run to the finish. A quick look at the route, and then we'll get back with the action. Paul, you've ridden this race. This is the route.
Well, I've ridden half of the race. I never actually finished Liège, Bastogne Liège. But it's an out and back course, and all of the climbs you can see are basically stacked up in the second part of the race from Bastogne all the way up to Liège. But it is very difficult in the final part of the course with the Côte de Saint-Roch and, of course, the Côte de Nid.
Let's rejoin the action now. 85 kilometres to go. Well, as you can see here, the riders obviously with 85 kilometres left on the way back from Bastogne. This is the hilly section of the route, the big climb still in front of them. For the first time, the breakaway under extreme pressure. Sitting at the back of the peloton here is Team Discovery's Benoit Joachim. It looks as though the pressure's really on now.
Doesn't look like he's enjoying himself here at Liège, Bastogne Liège, but I tell you what, that early morning breakaway, as we call it, built himself up an advantage at one stage of 7 minutes and 40 seconds. That's when they got to the first serious climb of the day, the Côte de la Roche. But ever since then, it's started to come down fairly dramatically because of all the work that's been done by Team CSC. I have a feeling Team CSC believe that their man, Frank Schleck, has got a very good chance of doing the double Amstel Gold Race Liège, Bastogne Liège. He's in great form this week.
Well, with 20 of the 25, this is Stefan Westerman, by the way, with 20 of the 25 teams represented up front, and big names like Jens Voigt, CSC, Michael Rogers, and Westerman here, who's having a little dig. 1 minute 57 is the gap. I'm surprised that they let it go so far, but now they're trying to chase it down, and they know that the tail of Liège, Bastogne Liège, with the big climbs of La Redoute in particular, it's a good course to close down very quickly on the breakaways.
It really is amazing how much a gap can get pulled down towards the end there. You can see one of the riders from T-Mobile having a little bit of a discussion at the front there. But it is, to me, the final 30 kilometres or so where this race really starts to go to pieces. The starting the climb of the Côte de la Redoute is where it really starts to get difficult. Stefan Westerman, I think, just prolonging the agony here. He's jumped away from that leading group of 26 riders. It's down to 1 minute and 58 seconds over the main field, but his advantage over the front end of the group is probably not very much more than about 20 or 30 seconds.
Well, Westerman, always a great rider, but his recent runner-up place in the Amstel Gold event has given him the confidence to have another little dig. The calendar used to be the other way around. It was the Amstel Gold race used to end the World Cup season before the big tour start, but now it is this event, Liege, Bastogne, Liege, the doyen of the classic season, the oldest classic now being held. Well, they're holding the gap just now, and it's probably because of the attack by Stefan that the gap is being pinned at around about 2 minutes. But I don't think this has got a chance now of surviving. But Westerman is trying to soften the field up for his teammates back in the peloton.
Well, he is, and also you've got a big armada of CSC riders on the front doing a lot of the pacemaking to eventually pull them all back together, and they would like to do that by the time they get to the Côte de la Redoute. You were mentioning there the doyen, or the oldest race on the calendar. There's a little bit of debate as to whether it started in 1892 or 1894, because the first couple of years when it was organised, it wasn't a fully professional event, it was an independent event, although you have to say it has been around for a long time.
Well, that bit is indisputable, and the last German winner of this event, it's not the time to tell Stefan Westerman, was Didi Thurau back in 1979. So a little bit of history in the making if Westerman was to succeed today. But look at this now, CSC. They're obviously not worried about the presence of Jens Voigt up front. The orders are out. There's Frank Schleck, the champion of Luxembourg. It's out to go and get them back.
Well, this is what it looks like in the Ardennes, and it is a magnificent day. I've ridden this race on occasions when you've left Liège in the morning in sunshine and ridden up into snow. In fact, one great day was when Bernard Hinault won Liège, Bastogne, Liège. There were only 17 riders at the finish, most of the riders abandoning before they got to the turn at Bastogne because of the snow on the road.
Well, the sun this time is on the back now of Westerman here, the German rider who almost won Paris-Roubaix on one occasion back in 2002, a second place again for him there. But he's won the Peace Race, which is what was a big amateur race. He won it 5 times during his career. He's a real racer. 83 kilometres to go. The rider's trying to organise something. Just prized out about 20 seconds on the field. All the big hills still to come. And plenty of reaction here from the breakaway. They're not really cracking up big time yet, are they, Paul? Looking at Juan Antonio Fletcher here in the Rabobank colours. Just dangling off the back of the breakaway right now.
Good move by him. Not really at home on this kind of a course. He's a very attacking rider, though. He's a man who will always look for a breakaway. But this is why the damage is being done. There's Paolo Bettini just to the front of the group, and not too far away, Danilo De Luca. These guys are getting a little bit nervous here because they're about to set themselves up for the Côte de Stockeur, which is a very serious climb, a very difficult climb, where if you get to the top there, you see a special still which has been put up there for Eddie Murk, and he wasn't too happy about that. He said you only put things like that up for people who are dead. Well, Eddie's certainly very much alive, and he's going to be 61 years old this year.
Well, Eddie Merckx, a little bit of argy-bargy going on at the back of the race here between two riders as they're heading up towards the climb of the Côte de Stockeur. Remember, the Stockeur is really where the big boys plan to start the assaults, because the hills come pretty fast once we're out of the town of Stavelot.
They certainly do. Stefan Westerman here looking very comfortable. A brave move by Stefan Westerman. 10.5% the climb of Stockeur. It's around about 1.1 kilometres long. Doesn't climb up very much, 116 metres. But once you descend over here, you go into the town of Stavelot again, and then it's out onto the open road and heading up towards Liège. But behind, it really is now starting to hot up, because I really believe today CSC think they've got the winning of this bike race.
Well, T-Mobile could do with a good result, there's no doubt about that. There's the giants of the Belgian Ardennes down there, and they're watching the giants of the world of cycling, at least some of them, in this leading group. It's still a pretty strong group, 25 men surviving. Just at the back, that white jersey with the green and yellow bands on off to the far right is being worn there by Ryan Cox. It's good to see the champion of South Africa in this breakaway. Now, Stefan Westerman got away really at about 91 to go on the Côte de Wena. And he's still holding that lead, but they're not very far behind.
They're not very far behind at all, but I'm sure this group will start to splinter a fraction, and they are being pulled back from a maximum advantage, as I said a little earlier, around about 8 minutes. Now it's well inside of the 2-minute mark. These guys here, I think, starting to realise, and they may well have been given the information by their team managers not to put the pressure into this move, because it's all really going to come back together, I'm sure, just about the time that we get to the climb of the Côte de la Redoute.
Well, anybody that thinks Belgium is flat just has to come down to this part of the world here. We're not far away from Luxembourg, Holland, Germany. It's a really nice part of the countryside, totally different to the northern countryside, the West Flanders area. But here we have, he's been away for 10 kilometres now, Stefan Westerman. A big gamble this, especially as the real hills on this course are still ahead of the race. Nice tempo riding being done. Juan Antonio Fletcher down there as well. But the main field, well, I think they'll feel that things are under control just for the moment. There's Jens Voigt just at the bottom of our picture.
Jens Voigt very strong. I've been told, I think, given the orders by the team to get into this breakaway this morning. Got away very early on in the day. Jens, I think, there just really as a policeman. You were mentioning how hilly this part of Belgium was. Well, in fact, the riders today went over the highest point of Belgium. It's a place called the Barak Friture, which I suppose in Belgium it means chips or frites.
Chips all around.
Not surprising, really, to call the highest point in the land after the most famous product coming out of Belgium, the chips.
Absolutely. Belgian chips and beer, that's the most two famous elements of this great country for cycle racing. We've gone back to the peloton here, and just about everybody left for CSC are driving at the front now, including Nicolas Jalabert.
And including, of course, Ivan Basso, who today I think is doing the work of an excellent team domestique. He too is looking after the team, thinking about his campaigns later on in the year. Of course, he wants to ride the Giro d'Italia and then go on and try and do the double to win the Tour de France as well. There's Basso over to the right-hand side. Carlos Sastre in second position, looking rather comfortable. Alejandro Valverde in the black and red jersey just over to the left-hand side. And, of course, in the Lampre jersey there, you might just have caught a glimpse of Damiano Cunego. This is really, I feel the year that a lot of the younger riders are starting to come through.
Just looking at the road surface here, Paul, I think it's suffered from the winter down here because we get a lot of frost in this region. And I also noticed Jerome Pinot at the back of the peloton now on the Bouygues Telecom colours, also having a little bit of a problem here, as indeed is this Cofidis rider, and it looks to me as though it might be Luis Perez Rodriguez.
You can see this leading group now, 26 riders, is really starting to suffer with this climb of Stocker. It's a difficult climb straight up from the valley, and strangely enough the race could avoid it if it wanted to, but the organisers bring them up this climb, which has become very famous in Liege, Bastogne, Liege, and they drop back down to almost the point where they started this climb in the town of Stavelot.
Three riders trying to get something together there, but this climb is not starting to hurt the legs. Now remember, this breakaway was started really by Fedrigo and Powell's, and they were picked up by a big group, and they must have thought it was Christmas when a big group came up like that, because they got about 7 minutes, a little bit over actually, before the reaction started. Now these are the chasers. The chasers, in fact, these are coming from the front group, because that's Steven Kleinum of Landbauer Credit.
Well, there's 40 seconds now between the lone rider at the front, Stefan Westerman, and this group, and it's inside of 2 minutes back to the main field. I think there would have been one or two nervous riders in the peloton, Phil, early on, as we see a chance for there's an imitation Belgian.
I think it's a trainee.
One.
That's a trainee devil, that, Paul, for the upcoming Tour de France, I think, because that's not our German friend at all.
No, it certainly isn't. But I think with that 26-man group getting clear early on, I think a lot of riders in the main field might have been a little bit worried, because that's a lot of guys to give a big advantage. But Team CSC have decided they're the ones who took responsibility. Surprisingly, Quick-Step not taking much interest in the chase, because I think Paolo Bettini is a man who's in pretty good form as well this week.
Well, this is the rider on the left of our picture here, the Sonia Duval rider, is coming back from the breakaway. It's Arkaitis Avoka, who's been caught from the leading group. He's now back in the peloton. Team CSC beginning to see the fruits of their labours, I think, as they're picking up the riders. Stefan Westerman here striking out for home. I don't think he really expects to go alone to the finish. He could do with just the strong men left in that breakaway to reach him, and maybe they could start working again together.
Well, Stefan Westerman was a little bit upset in the early part of the Classics campaign because he had a bronchial infection, which really took him out of Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix. And I actually spoke to him a couple of days ago and asked him about how it was representing Germany. And he said, well, have you not been reading the newspapers? He says, I'm Swiss now.
That's right, he's changed over to the Swiss nationality, so if he rides the World Championship, it'll be for Switzerland from now on and not Germany. As the riders continue to labour here on the climb. This is, as I say, a lovely area of Belgium. This road looking a little bit rough down there just now. This is the advanced party coming up from the peloton. There's the time checks. The gap, first gap of 41 seconds is to Westerman to what was the breakaway, and 2:10 to the peloton. And there is Stefan Westerman. He's now 35 years of age. Turned pro back in 1993, and he's won himself 38 races and many of them really good races throughout a great career.
Tough races. And I tell you what, he's now on the slopes of the Côte de Haute-Levée, and that's climbing away from the small town of Stavelot. It's the 6th climb of the day. There are 13 climbs in all that are categorised in Liege, Bastogne, Liege. The most difficult ones come down towards the end. The Côte de la Redoute at 227 kilometres covered. But for me, one of the most difficult climbs of the whole race is the Côte de Saint-Nicolas, right down towards the end. Just 10 kilometres to go to the finish.
His best ever finish, by the way, in Liege, Bastogne, Liege was a couple of years ago when he made it in 11th place. There's the statistics on the Haute Levée. Nearly 3.5 kilometres long, takes us up, not very high, but it's the angle of ascent which causes the problems. It's only up to 204 metres above sea level, about 700 feet.
Once they get to the top of this climb, it also is made a little bit more difficult because, in fact, it opens out for a while, and that's when you normally get big winds coming across, blowing across the top of the climb, and that very often in the past has seen echelons split the main field. Westerman on a long, lonely path now. He's built up almost a minute advantage there. It doesn't look as if he's going all that well, but in fact, if you look at the clock, it's up to 3/4 of a minute advantage.
Looking back at the group, the Stefanman left here now, and looks as though he's... the other guy down there in the T-Mobile colours in second line, by the way, is the world time trial champion Michael Rogers, trying to knock himself into form, I think, for the upcoming Tour de France. He hasn't done a lot this year yet. He's down there, and he's playing the waiting game just now, as we see the riders trying to keep this there. The Discovery Channel rider setting the pace is Jurgen van der Broek. He's making the pace setting, and they've got an A2GR rider down there as well. That's Philippe Gilbert.
And the French national champion is in this leading group as well, Varuga.
He started it, really. He was one of the first on the attack. There's the time board, slightly different to the one on our screen. But the thing about the timing boards, the time they get to reach the riders, of course, the time gaps have changed, where ours is operating on satellite, so it's probably a little bit more accurate.
Michael Rogers on the left-hand side there, made the switch across to T-Mobile. I think this year at the Tour de France he'll have to dedicate himself, of course, to the performance of Jan Ullrich, because in the T-Mobile squad this year it's going to be all for Jan Ullrich. No time to take out sprints for Eric Zabel. It's a completely dedicated team to trying to get their man Jan Ullrich to win. This, though, to me, is one of the best drilled squads in the game. It was a quick glimpse there of Team CSC. They have done the bulk of the work. They don't have any friends in the peloton this afternoon.
No, they don't. And you see there's a lot of strong men at the front. There's a lot of hangers-on now at the back in this breakaway. One of them is also Juan Antonio Fletcher, who's sitting at the back of this group down there. Michael Rogers hasn't had a win this year at all. He only had one last year. But he did get a great result in the Tour of Switzerland, where he led that race for 3 days, but he lost it on the very last day, and it was heartbreaking for him. He really was upset about that. Well, better luck this time around, I guess, because he'll ride the Tour of Switzerland again this year.
Yes, it was only seconds on that occasion, and he certainly did bat it out. I'm sure he was convinced he was going to win the race. And I think the way he rode the Tour of Switzerland last year took a little bit of energy away from his attempt to ride well in the Tour de France, because he did have a hard time. And that's the difficult thing about choosing the Tour of Switzerland, as preparation for the Tour de France. But anyway, we're a long way from that. We're on the road to the Classics at the moment, and the team for the Classics so far really seems to have been Team CSC, because they're the ones who are banking everything on pulling this breakaway back. 39 seconds now, the advantage of Stefan Westerman to this group, which lost a number of riders, and I have a feeling that the gap back down to the main field is going to be a lot less than 2 minutes, because you can see the main field now, Phil, are also on the early slopes of the Haute Levée.
Yes, and they're picking up Unai Echeverria here, who's coming back from that leading group, so it's thinning all of the time. And really thinning all the time, but it is a very big peloton. And this has been the pattern, in fact, of Liège, Bastogne, Liège these last few years. They're getting to the base of the La Redoute climb in a big bunch, and they're not really that far away from the front group just now.
Nicky Sorensen just over on the right-hand side for CSC. I think his job done for the afternoon, while we scoot back towards the front end of this group. And again, riders trying to move off, trying to get themselves across there to Stefan Westerman. There, Mike Rogers coming up here. This is Jurgen van den Broek, a new rider on Team Discovery. They do have a lot of young talent on the squad this year, looking to replace Lance Armstrong, and you have to admit, Johan Brunel really does have an eye for up-and-coming talent.
Yes, and the biggest eye he ever had was for Tom Bonen, I think, and he's probably ruined the day that Bonen decided he didn't want to stay with T-Mobile, with Discovery Channel, or US Postal as it was then. Instead, he moved over to Quickstep, and he's becoming quite a star, especially this year. This is Jens Voigt now, and he's been CSC setting the pace in the breaks, CSC setting the pace in the chase here. A little bit confusing tactics just at the moment.
Certainly is, but for Jens Voigt, he's just there's been a problem here for Federico. I think it was a flat tyre. It just happened just a moment ago. He's back up and riding, but it's certainly not the place to have to change a wheel and get going again halfway up the Haute Levée. But he's up out of the saddle. It's a good team, Bouygues Telecom. They were very good in the French National Championships last year, getting first and second. And it's a team which still to this day is pretty much made up of just Frenchmen.
Yes, the French still looking for a man capable of winning the Tour de France. In the last 20 years, American riders, 2 of them to be precise, have taken that event on 10 occasions. Still a little bit of work being done here. Luis Rodriguez, I think it is, the Cofidis boy. 78 kilometres from the line. And with him is Martin Vainant, a Chocolat Jacques. We don't see too much of that team. It's not a Pro Tour team. It's in here by virtue of a wild card. And Stephen Kleinen from Lambau Credit coming back here. I think these boys are behind the break right now, Paul. They were in it a minute ago.
Yeah, this is Rick Verbrugge here trying to get across.
Oh, it is as well.
It's rather strange to see him in the Cofidis colours. I've seen him change teams a number of times over the last couple of years, but these guys are having a very difficult time here just trying to stay on the wheel. This is the part of the course which is a little bit more open.
In fact, Verbrugge going backwards, they were in the breakaway. So Verbrugge is strong. They won't be with him for very long, I don't think.
They shouldn't be. Rick Verbrugge is a man who in the past has dominated the early classics. He was a former winner of the Flèche Wallonne race. They're trying to get themselves organised here at 78 kilometres to go. Turning the world of cycling upside down, that cameraman. There's Mick Rogers over on the left-hand side. Almost at the top here of the Côte de Haute Levée. It really is a magnificent part of the world, the Belgian Ardennes, when you get a day like this.
A lot of pine woods, not indigenous trees, but planted here.
That's the motor racing circuit of Francorchamps, by the way, which is where the riders will just skirt around. I remember a number of years ago, a man by the name of Raul Alcala winning a stage of the Tour de France when it finished there.
First ever stage win at the time by a Mexican. Raul Alcala, former member, of course, of the 7-11 squad. Well, that team celebrating its first entry into the Tour de France 20 years ago now. See, it's amazing, isn't it?
20 years ago. That's around about the same time I started commentating with you, 1986.
Oh dear. Perhaps we better change the subject then right now. But back to the action here now, as everybody's looking at each other, checking out who's going on now. This is still Verbrugge here. He's pushing on. He's got a couple of passengers. They can't help him because they're coming the other way. He's picked them up on the ride. And I think that ELS Baleares Case de Pan rider was Nicolas Portel. He's also coming back from the breakaway.
Had a pretty good start to the season, Portal. Starting to fraction up. That's Rick Verbrugge there. He's going to try and ride across a gap which is still hovering at around about the 2-minute mark. I'm not quite sure of the intelligence of the tactics like that. He may well be hoping that there is a group comes off the front of the main group to join him. And if that does happen, then he can start to consolidate. But looking up the road here, you can see the damage that's been done here by the Haute Levée. That group that was 26 riders at the start of the day is now started to be reduced in numbers. That's Fletcher. Strange move for Fletcher to get into an early morning breakaway like this, because he's the kind of rider who, if he rode a little bit more sensibly, could be in with a chance of winning. Just behind him, a quick glimpse there of Ryan Cox. There he is in the white jersey. He's getting his first attempt at these big one-day classics. Team Barlow World, the formerly South African squad, now registered in the UK, are getting a number of wild-card entries into the big races this season.
Yeah, I think it's because they're taking Conti on as their team manager. He's got plenty of contacts in the business, former amateur world champion. And just looking there, Cox kept his place in the team, and well, he should do as well. He's had a great Tour de Langkawi, which he'd won last year as well.
So I don't know if you caught a little inside there to Jens Voigt. He wasn't very happy with the motorbike, and he speaks perfect English as well as perfect French. So he had a little word with the motorbike driver there and says, "You're riding too long in front of this group." Obviously, he wasn't very happy about that, because he's wanted to get caught by his teammates who are working behind.
That indicates to us the plan that he knows the team is chasing, and he's not prepared to keep this breakaway away much longer, because there's still the big hills to come. This is Martin Vainant, or this is Rick Verbrugge, but we're with Martin Vainant. 2 wins for Rick last year. Remember, he holds the record in the Giro d'Italia for the fastest ever prologue victory. I think it's around about 57 kilometres an hour. Still the fastest race of any description on the road, and it's quite a claim to fame, is that. But last year he won the prologue in the Benelux Tour, which is a new Pro Tour event. He also won the Grand Prix Lugano time trial, so there was his only 2 wins. A bit of a problem here, Paul. I think it's for one of the Crédit Agricole riders.
I think he's going back for a drink. A lot of these riders dropping back. I just saw Benoit Joachim going back to the car to take on board drinks. Starting to warm up a fraction here as everybody now, you see this, none of these riders seem to me to have mechanical problems. It's actually much more a fluid problem than anything else.
Yeah, well, that was the Discovery Channel's rider there. He also had his hand up. It didn't look as though he was in too much trouble. Vladimir Gusev as well. Well, there's what is left of this breakaway now. It's 1:23. They're working. That's the gap, of course, to the leader, and there is the leader. We haven't seen him for a little while, but Steph Westerman has really prized open a big lead here. Nobody came across to him. Now, I'm not so sure that's working out in the plan at all. I think he needed help here. It's a little bit too ambitious, surely, to go for gold from such a long way out. He got away around 90 kilometres from the finish, and he's now 75, nearer 76, a long way to go.
Well, he's looking at almost 2 hours of racing to try and survive at the front end of a group which is dedicated to slowly but surely pulling back all of the breakaways. But one thing that will come out of this, because I'm pretty much convinced that Stefan Westerman is going to get caught, but one thing it will do for him and the team is they'll get an awful lot of television publicity time, and that could be rather important for a team like T-Mobile, because they haven't really had a very good season so far. They've had a couple of wins in the Tour of California, but they've yet to open up a serious bank account in Europe.
Well, in all honesty, I think the two best men on the team are in this breakaway. That is Westerman and Michael Rogers, with the exception of the rider they nominated today as their team leader, and that is Patrick Sinkovic. Sinkovic could do a good result here. I know that Patrick Lefevre was rather annoyed towards the end of last season when Sinkovic said, "I'm leaving the team," and this is a cheeky attack now.
This is Jens Voigt. I really don't know what Jens is doing, because we've got a situation where Stefan Westerman is 1.5 minutes in front of this group here, but it's only 30 seconds now back to the front end of the main field. And Westerman looks calmly to be looking over his shoulder. He doesn't need to worry too much, because those boys are not even in the same straightaway as him.
Oh, we're building up the time checks on the top of the picture there now. Peloton is 2:43 behind the man we're looking at here. Here comes word from the team manager to tell him how he's getting on. He's just riding his own race at the moment. He's riding within himself, and as it happens, the gap is still continuing to go up here.
Well, he's got to get down to a job in hand. It's a long, lonely job for Stefan Westerman, and as you said, he became throughout his career the specialist of the Peace Race, which was one of the top 2 amateur races in the world alongside the British Milk Race. They were the 2 big races on the calendar for many, many seasons, and it's nice to see that the Peace Race is about to get reinstigated again, because it's a race I think has got an awful lot of history about it.
Now, it looks to me as though that peloton is beginning to reorganise itself. Looked a bit ragged down there. Nobody willing to make the move just yet as we move along the road now. All these boys have been hard at it for about 4 hours, are suddenly finding they haven't really got very far today. And the man leading the course is Stefan Westerman. Just to remind you that the grand winner of the biggest race of them all here is Eddy Merckx. He's won this event 5 times, believe it or not, between 1969 and 1975. And the man we became, well, for me, Paul, knew him better as a television commentator, Fred de Bruyn, sadly no longer with us. He won this race in 56, 58 and 59. He was an extremely good television commentator too.
He was a great bloke, Fred de Bruyn. He actually retired from television commentary to take up team management at one stage, and he actually passed away at rather a young age, but he did, I think, enjoy the last few years of his life, because he moved down to the south of France and lived not too far away from San Rafael.
I remember him telling me he was always proud. His son, who wasn't a cyclist, actually went to college in Britain. He went to one of the most famous universities we have in Cambridge, and he was always proud of that because he actually spoke English pretty well. A little bit of confusion here now. Everybody wondering who's going to be the next to take up the pace as we watch Jurgen van den Broek now. He's no longer too concerned at the front. He's put in a lot of work at the front today. Johan Bruneel have no doubt taken note of that, because this is one of Johan's riders for later on up the road, I think. And he's learning the ropes pretty well.
A bit difficult for Discovery Channel at the moment, and a lot of teams too, to field full teams. And in fact, Discovery Channel only fielding 6 riders here at the start of Liege, Bastogne, Liege. Probably a little bit more concerned about the Tour of Georgia.
And of course they're losing riders right, left and centre with minor injuries which are taking them off the roster, and this is always a problem now where there are so many Pro Tour races, some of them running concurrently. You've got to keep riders in reserve, and it's a hard year for a Pro Tour rider now.
And you're obliged to field the rider in every Pro Tour event, or you field
Absolutely.
a team in every Pro Tour event, and that is what is very difficult if you start to get injuries, which is why now a lot of the squads are moving up to 25 or 26 riders strong.
That's right, and at the start of the season, some of the riders are saying, hey, I've got no races, you don't put me on any list. But of course, once the season starts and riders do get injured, do catch cold, do get sick, then they find that they're being overworked rather than underworked.
Nice manoeuvre by the television motorbike there, just getting himself around the corner. It's very much a symbiotic relationship, the relationship between the television cameras and the bike riders. And those motorbike drivers actually learn a very good relationship with the bike riders. Everyone has to trust each other, and the bike riders actually get to know the television cameramen, and they know just how they're going to ride on the road. And of course, that motorbike driver knows exactly what line the riders are going to take around the corners.
Yeah, thank heavens, it's pretty straightforward today. The weather conditions are good, the wind's not too strong, but wait till you get the rain or the cold weather. The slippery roads, a very strong crosswind. They've got to know where the race is going before they position for that shot. Well, down these beautiful roads, which would be idyllic if we were on a touring bike today and just enjoying the countryside, here comes Stefan Westerman. The sun right on top of him right now as he continues to course back towards the finish in Liege. Now, we must remind you, this race doesn't actually finish in the old town of Liege anymore. We cross and we climb away. And ever since we've gone to this town of Ans, it's been a much better finish.
Absolutely stupendous finish, a very difficult finish. They found this final climb, the Côte de Saint-Nicolas, which I think is a horrendous brute of a climb, and that's just at 6 kilometers to go to the finish. It flattens out for a fraction of time, and then of course they do let that long drag up to the finishing line in Ans. We're looking now at these riders. They're moving away from, if you could just see over to the right-hand side, that would you would see the small town of Spa, which is where the Francorchamps racing course is, the Formula 1 racing course. The riders now heading out towards the 7th climb of the day, and that is the Côte de Rosier, and that will be at 200 kilometers covered. There's Ryan Cox. It's great to see the South African champion riding so well at the front.
Yeah, this is a big year for him, for Ryan Cox here, as he taps out the tempo. And this is still the breakaway, which is considerably big. It was 26, one's gone up the road making 25, but I think now we've dropped about 5 riders, so we've still got around 20 men in this group.
Still a big group, but the gap's starting to come down, and I'm sure that the main field, Phil, is trying to time it to perfection to catch these guys before they get to the Côte de la Redoute, because they don't want any confusion. They all see the Côte de la Redoute as a very important strategic point. Now, there's a different jersey at the front now. The black jerseys of Caisse d'Epargne Il Baleares are now starting to get involved with the mix, so the word has probably gone out that Alejandro Valverde is not too bad.
Well, briefly there, we saw Johan van Summeren at the front. You can easily pick him out. He's the tallest bike rider around, I think, at the moment. But he's gone back into the field. As we look now, the way these riders are riding tempo now, all looking at each other, and you're right. Now, this is obviously a move that's come from somebody like Alejandro Valverde. He's been told to teammates, go up front, just 1 or 2 riders, give CSC a hand, because we need this breakaway to start to come down. Because they were catching very quickly, and now they've actually begun to lose a grip of that lead group again, just moving out a few seconds, but it's enough. It's the wrong way.
It is certainly the wrong way, but you can see by the fact that the main field is starting to stretch out there, that's Team CSC. Maybe they turned off the pressure a bit because they felt they were doing just a little bit too much work in this part of the course, and they wanted to force the other teams to come forward and give a little bit of assistance. Valverde, obviously a man on form with his recent win in the Flèche Wallonne, but of course I'm waiting to see the blue jerseys of Quick-Step come forward, because Paolo Bettini wasn't too bad last week either.
No, Bettini, I think, has got pretty good form, and he is a man for these Northern Classics. He really is. And not many Italians can say that. The other one was the man we saw at the start of our show, and he was at the start line, and that is Michele Bartoli. He was a great rider in these classics, and let's not forget it's Bettini who really replaced him as the winner.
Well, they were very good mates, and I think Bettini learned an awful lot from Michele Bartoli. Bartoli was an incredible bike rider, Il Gatto, the cat they used to call him. Not only did he win this race, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but he was also a very dominant winner, of course, of the Tour of Flanders.
That's right. And that's another great race where really the Italians don't like those races at all. But another big Italian for this race is Moreno Argentin. He won this race 3 times, 85, 87 and 91, and one of those times he got the double. He won the Flèche Wallonne as well. And since then, only David Rebellin has done that, and today it will be Valverde if he were to win. 68 kilometres.
Starting to get a little bit grippy. That's around about 45 miles. But I'm surprised that Caisse d'Epargne here, Phil, have only sent 1 rider to the front. If you want to pull this breakaway back, you need an organised chase group, as Team CSC were doing. But Team CSC have still got a lot of riders up towards the front. There's Eric Decker as well for Rabobank. He's starting to look good. He too has said This is going to be his last season. I think there'll be a lot of big names retiring towards the end of this year, as we've seen a lot of the young riders coming through, because we've got Damiano Cunego, 24 years old, Balan, 26 years old, Valverde, 25 years old, Sammy Sanchez, 28 years old. They're all youngsters. I think it's the new era starting to break.
On to the Côte de Rossier now. 5.9% is its average, 236 metres up the hill. It's quite a long one at 4,000 metres, or 4 kilometres, 2.5 miles. That's quite a long way to climb right now, and this rider is still looking good. 67 kilometres though still to go. He's been about 25 kilometres up front here. There's the gap, a minute 18. Remember, that is not to the peloton which we're looking at. That is to the what is left of the breakaway. And on the Côte de Rossier, we are told there are now 17 riders left in the chase group.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's the chase group there, and it's not very much time between them and the front end of the main field. I would estimate around about a 30-second difference. So quite possibly before they get to the top of the Côte de Rossier here, Phil, we may well see a general regrouping, leaving the race situation with just one man in front, this man Stefan Westerman. Making a brave move today, but I don't believe that in the back of his mind Stefan Westerman thinks he's going to run away with this event.
I'll tell you what, Paul, when they do sweep up that big chase group, we are going to see a terrific attacking race here to try and sort this out as they continue. This rider, Bert de Voller, Lambau credit, and he's got his teammate up there with him too, Kleinman, having a little chat. They're both pretty tired. Michael Rogers just behind. This is the breakaway group, so Kleinman must have come back up to this group somehow, because that's who it was. There's the peloton on the zigzags of the climb of the Côte de Rossier. They're going to be jumping on that breakaway any minute now. CSC have got control at the front again. Having a look around, Rabobank have got their men up here as well. Well, Michael Bogard is in the mix today, and he is a man for the classics, as always. Did a great ride in the Amstel Gold Race.
Unai Echevarria going backwards. He was in the early morning breakaway. I'm pretty certain that his legs must be stinging quite a bit. A little bit of discussion there on the right-hand side. That's Carlos Sastre looking for information, wants to know exactly what's going on. And I kind of forgot about this man, Rick Verbrugge, still caught in no man's land. Not a great move, I don't think, by Rick Verbrugge to do this, because I think if he looks back over his shoulder, you will see he's in the wrong place.
Why he did this. I mean, it was a lot of effort that got him absolutely nowhere, because that bunch never stopped chasing at all. But he's riding very, very well. Probably as well as we've seen him for a couple of years here, Verbrugge. He's now on the Cofidis squad for the first time. He left Quick Step at the end of last season. So he probably wants to impress the French setup.
Well, I'll tell you what, in fact, Rick Verbrugge has ridden across to the group in between, so he actually made the junction.
And in fact, that will explain why we just saw Stephen Kleinman, because he was going off the back and he's come back on.
That's a pretty impressive performance. I actually was rather nasty in my remarks about Rick Verbrugge. That's quite a good performance to ride across, but he's only got himself a 30-second advantage now over the front end of the main field. He's used an awful lot of energy to get across that gap, and he's going to find himself back in the main field, I would say, quite possibly before we get to the top of this climb.
Well, that was a shot there of Torsten Hickman of Gerolsteiner. He is going the other way. He was in this group. But the climb here of the Rossier, it is a long climb. It's mostly in trees. He's heading backwards now, and that group is not very far ahead.
Tell you what, they're stretching this peloton out. There's a lot of pressure on the front end of the group now. They're starting to get themselves organised. Once they go over the top of this climb, the Côte de Rossier, they're around about 26 kilometres to go to the Côte de la Redoute. That's around about 40 minutes of racing in roads like this, these kind of conditions. And I believe, Phil, they want to pull them back before that point, because they don't want any confusion. They want a good race when they get to the Côte de la Redoute. It's such an important strategic climb. Yeah, it's a great hill. It really is very, very steep. We head down through Remouchon, do a little bit of a chicane, and then we start the climb over La Redoute. And then it's more or less all climbs towards the finishing line here. And Verbrugge, he's the fresh legs, did well to reach them, doesn't want to throw away all of the hard work he's put in. So he's gone straight to the front and he's driving it on. Now, he should have had a teammate up here, but I haven't seen him for a while, Luis Rodriguez, so he may have been dropped. I think he went backwards a little bit earlier on, and that's probably why Rick Verbrugge decided to try and go out of the front of the group. And as you can see, it's not easy, this group, as we head up towards the summit here of the Côte de Rossier. 199 kilometres covered at the top. Well, a brief glimpse at the back of Serge Pauwels. I think I called him Eddie early on, which is a man who's now retired from the sport. But Serge was one of the early instigators of this move, and he's still in this breakaway, albeit now, I think, paying the price. He's hanging on. 66 kilometres to go. They've got almost 200 in the legs now, 125 miles.
1:15 between leader and chase, and it's not a lot more to the peloton at all, is it? Because that is the peloton, and they're about to catch.
They certainly are. There's a lot of tension starting to build now as these riders realise they're coming to the rather more important strategic phase of this race. Stefan Westerman will be getting information all of the time. He's got himself a minute 20 advantage. Just inside of 2 minutes, though, back to the main field. It's a great move by Stefan here. Trying to get a little bit out of his classic season. He has, over the last couple of years, been a seriously good rider of the classics. But as we see the joining there of the two groups behind, it leaves a race situation where there's just one man in front.
And again, it is a huge peloton who's reached them here. Now, they will know in modern day racing there is one man ahead. In the old days, of course, they might not be aware that Stefan Westerman has gone off up the road, but they will know now. The managers will have told them, so they're going to have to start deciding whether they're going to wind him in here. We're watching here Marcos Serrano, the Spanish rider on Liberty Seguros, who's got himself to the front. A little smile there from one of the riders from Case de Pan.
Well, I tell you what, I don't know if you saw the face there of Jens Voigt. Jens Voigt went back to the front, and he decided he's just been pulled back into the fold here, and he said, right, the guys are back up. We want to win this bike race. I've got a little bit of energy left. Actually, I don't know where he gets his energy, but he's decided to whip up the pace a little bit more. Well,
he is an amazing character. So we watch here another rider here, Carlos Sastre. He's a rider who's getting his form for the Tour de France. I don't know if Pat McQuaid appears. Is that Pat McQuaid on it? No, it's not. This is Jean-Marie Leblanc, and I think it is Pat McQuaid who's in the car there, but we're getting reflections on our TV screen, but it looks like it might be.
Jean-Marie Leblanc riding out his last season as a top man here. Really. It is. He's a man who I think has been responsible for the resurrection of the Tour de France. You know, when I rode the Tour in the 70s and 80s, Phil, they had a hard time getting a full field. They would have 70 or only 80 riders. Now, they've had to put in place rules to limit the number of riders and stop the Tour de France getting too big.
Well, it is getting too big, and I think the world body aren't too happy it is so big, because a lot of the world believes there's only one bicycle race, which is very sad for these riders, of course. Mind you, there's a lot of people who believe the only job I report is the Tour de France, Paul.
Well, there's a lot more bike races, and it is a pity about that, because sadly for most people they only know the Tour de France, and there are so many other great races around, like Liege, Bastogne, Liege, Tour of Flanders, and of course I really enjoy the Tour of Italy and the Tour de France, the Tour of Spain, because they're slightly different races.
Well, shot there at Torsten Hickman. He was in the breakaway, and I think we can now say he was in the peloton, because on the climb here, which seems to go on and on, the Rosier, he's been unhitched at the back. 65 kilometres to go. We're not far from the summit of the climb now. Terrific work being done by Marcos Serrano on the front. As I say, looking for his form for the upcoming Tour de France, Liberty Seguros.
Well, that's obviously because he's had the word and the nod as well from Alexander Vinokourov, and I would be a little bit surprised because Vinokourov has a different start to his season this year. He's been thinking a lot more about doing well in the Tour de France, and this is really one of his first serious outings. There's Paolo Bettini in the golden helmet, the Olympic champion from Athens, and just a little bit further back there as well I caught a quick glimpse of Alberto Contador.
Very fast tempo riding now. Westerman is not going to survive this, even though at the moment he's holding that 90-second advantage over the field. They should get him before La Redoute if they keep this sort of pressure on here, because they know now they've caught everybody else, and that the riders with ambition are not going to ride far away from the front now, because the peloton could split at any moment. You don't know who the really tired men are, and Bettini's a true man. Vinokourov was only 2 men behind Bettini there.
Well, Vinokourov is obviously thinking about it here this afternoon. It's a tall order, though, when you come out the first time to seriously race. The only man who, in recent history, has ever been able to do that, pick days to come out and perform, is a man by the name of Lance Armstrong, who always used to be able to do that at the Amstel Gold Race and Liège-Bastogne-Liège before then disappearing into the mountains to prepare for the Tour de France. So it'll be interesting to see, as far as I'm concerned, how Vinokourov handles today.
Lance has had his great moments in this race, of course, and proved to us he was a great classics rider as well as a big Tour winner.
He almost did the double too. He won the Flèche Wallonne and finished second in Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
Absolutely. He won the prize for the best of the two races, though.
Yeah, I don't think he was very happy about that. He certainly would have liked to win Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He did everything for it. In fact, a couple of years ago, he got the wrath of his very good mate, Eddy Merckx, because he chased down Axel Merckx. Yes. So much did he think that he was going to win the race himself.
Yes, Eddie wasn't too pleased about that, and neither was Axel, of course, and it didn't work out because at the end of the day it was Tyler Hamilton who stole the honours.
But I tell you what, at the end of the day, they all got back together and were very good mates, and still, think Eddie Merckx is regarded by Lance very much as a father figure.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that. I would agree with that, Paul, all the way. Not that it matters now, because the great Lance is no longer a top professional cyclist. He'll be watching us on television, I would think.
Look at that, Jens Voigt. I love this guy. He is unbelievable. Been in the breakaway all day. Last moment, he was 7.5 minutes up, gets caught, and then all of a sudden, he goes back to the front again. He's going to try and pull this gap back on his own, and he's done a serious job here because it's 1 minute and 4 seconds.
Well, these are huge efforts here. Voigt chasing another German rider. Well, no, that's correct. He's now a Swiss rider in Stefan Westerman. Jens himself, over a career which started back in 1997, has won 47 bike races. He was second in this race last year. He's more or less thrown that chance away of repeating this time around because he's just given all his energy away. At 64 kilometres to go, just on 40 miles to the finish. CSC are trying to get this race back together. Now, I wonder what he's saying there. Slow down, Jens.
Yeah, slow down, Jens. You're hurting my legs.
Yeah.
There's still a long way to go, 63 kilometres. The next climb of the day, the 8th climb of the day, is the Côte de la Vecchie. And that's not too far away from where these riders are. And that will be just 17 kilometres before the start of the Côte de la Redoute. Beautiful part of the world, this beautiful day. The sun is high in the sky. A little bit brisk, though. It's only around about 16 degrees Celsius. I suppose you would say it would be a very nice spring day.
It is a very nice spring day indeed, and there have been many unnice spring days in this event over the years gone by, but today it is perfect. Beautiful area to ride your bike. These roads are narrow all over here. They just lie around like pieces of string, and it's a fabulous touring area. Lovely hotels, and of course you've always got the beer of Belgium if you get bored.
Oh, well, I never get bored with the beer of Belgium. I tell you what, there's some big names riding up to the front of this group. I just saw Kuhne go up towards the front. Alexander Vinokourov is not far away. Basso doing a lot of work for the team here, so obviously he's not thinking about winning Liege, Bastogne, Liege. It's amazing to see that a great champion like Ivan Basso is still capable of working as a domestique to look after the rest of the team, because he's going to pull those favours back later in the year. You bet your life he will. And I can't believe that Basso is trying to win both the Tour of Italy and the Tour de France, because the way cycling is these days, to attempt to do the double in modern day cycling, it could mean you fall between two stools and do nothing in either. Well, that's exactly what happened to him. Well, not really exactly what happened to him last year, but I do believe that riding the Tour of Italy as he did last year and blowing up on that one day and losing 40 minutes is probably something that he paid a cost for when it came to the Tour de France and tried to challenge Lance Armstrong.
Yeah, he lost 45 minutes, I think it was, in one day, and he came back, sure, and he went on. There's been a crash here. A little bit of a crash. Well, this is a rider of the case of Tapan. I think it's Nicolas Portal. It is, there we are. Nicolas Portal, well, he's been in the move, maybe a little bit tired. Missed that right-hand bend. Dr. Gérard Porte, who's the Tour de France doctor, on hand. He's put a lot of riders back on the bike over the years, as Gérard Porte.
Put me back on the bike a couple of times.
Oh, my goodness.
He's been around that long.
Well, he has. I was on the Tour of Egypt with him when I was the chief commissaire many, many years ago, and he was just a young up-and-coming doctor, and he wasn't actually in full flow on the Tour de France at that time. It looks as though he's got Portal on the way. Boy, he went down heavy, eh?
Yeah.
That was a left-hand bend, judging by the way.
Probably he was a little bit on the rivet, as we say in cycling. Let's not forget he was in the breakaway. The pressure is really on in this main field now as they're trying to pull it all back together. And I think he was probably riding inside the wheel of a man in front. He touched the wheels, and once that happens, in a situation like this, you can't really control how you fall, and he went down pretty hard. I think he'll ride to the next feeding station, and there is another feeding station in between the Côte de Rosier and the Côte de la Vecchie, and I think he'll take the back roads up to Liège on the finish.
Well, Portal, it's a big move for him this year, joining a Spanish setup, Case Tapan. You don't get French riders moving around too much from French teams. And until now, he's always ridden for French teams, AG2R, and last year it was Crédit Agricole. So he's wanted to impress. Well, he has impressed, let's face it. He's been in the breakaway most of the day. He's now in big trouble. And I think he's probably fatigued that's caused that crash myself.
Yep. Fatigue and a little bit of pilot error, as they would say. That's Stefan Westerman on the left-hand side. There is the main field now starting to course its way through the Ardennes. And as you look down there, you can see the pink jersey. It's down to 47 seconds. The peloton, once again, Phil, are going to get it just right, I think. They'll pull their man Westerman in just before the start of the Côte de la Redoute. And
then the strong men will push on the Côte de la Redoute and maybe stay away all the way to the finish, because if you get a group of about 6, 7, maybe 10, the peloton won't see him again once they get working together. Bourgmont, Heading towards the mountains that will count here. 47 seconds. I'm afraid the curtains are about to be drawn on poor old Stefan Westerman. This is the back of the peloton, and they are absolutely flying now.
Well, you get a chance here to understand the speed when the pressure is on at the front end of a bike race, because everybody now, as we look at the arrière du peloton, the back end of the main field, everybody is scrambling just to stay in contact with the rider in front, and that's probably why young Nicolas Portal went down rather hard. But Westerman, actually, despite this work being done, he's taken a few more seconds.
It is incredible. He might be on easier roads than these boys, but I wouldn't have said so, because these boys are slightly downhill here.
Slightly downhill. There's Carlos Sasser on the front. Bogard, second position for him. A lot of riders from T-Mobile.
Well, they're trying to slow it down, I guess.
Yeah, they're just paying attention, riding at the front end of the group to make sure that their man is protected. But they must realise the writing is pretty much on the wall, because...
I still don't believe, Paul, that in fact Westerman has gone away here to try and win the race. He's gone away to make these guys do exactly what they are doing, and that's chase him.
Yep.
Because Patrick Sinkovic is their key man today.
Well, he's ridden well in these races last year, and he probably feels that he can do well this year as well, but it is putting a lot of pressure on Team CSC. I am a bit surprised, but maybe more cannily, Team Quickstep have taken a back seat. They're around about 7th and 8th position there. They can see them just coming through the feeding station. Important in a race like this to take on board lots of energy and keep your energy stocks right up to the maximum. Bettini's riding very cleverly. He's riding in the top 10 to 12, and he hasn't used up his team yet.
No, and he sat there just far enough not to do any work, but to keep an eye on what is going on. He'll know the plan too. Well, we're into the feeding zone, and we'll be very, very short. I think except 500 metres on that sign to the feeding station. We're off the little stretch of mountain roads here, back onto what is generally a main road in this part of the world, but you can bet your life we'll turn off it again soon, and up into the forests which abound here. There he is, Stefan, still determined to keep those riders chasing as long as possible, because he wants them to get rid of their energy. He's thinking, I'm absolutely certain, of Patrick Sinkovic today, who has joined T-Mobile from Quickstep. And as I said earlier, that didn't please Patrick Lefevre, because when he heard he was leaving the team last year, he left him out of the World Championships.
Yep, he wasn't very happy with him at all. He was rather vexed with the fact that he switched teams. As the riders now, they're in between the two climbs of the Rosier and La Vecchie. That gives them a chance to take on board a little bit of food during the flat part of the course. But they'll start to turn the screws a little bit more. But I think because of the feeding zone here, we've seen an advantage stretching out again for Stefan Westerman at the front, and he's pushed it back up almost to the minute mark again.
Change of concentration now. Food more important than winning the bike race. Leonardo Bertignoli on the right there, snatching his bag, 121. As they now settle back in. 54 seconds. Not surprisingly, you get a little bit of a lead here. The peloton is distracted. As they... and it's quite a big peloton, I have to say. There were... at the start today, 195 riders. It's nothing like that. It's probably about 100 strong, though, this peloton.
But over the last couple of years, we've seen this in Liege, Bastogne, Liege. There's been a large peloton attacking the Côte de la Redoute. And that seems to be the course. There's a levelling out of form, I think, with a lot of riders. And riders will fight their way back to get themselves into a position to help their team leaders for as long as possible. But I do think we'll have a pretty much filtration system going on the Côte de la Redoute. There's the Belgian national champion there, Serge Baguet. Another rider swapping teams during the winter into winter changing season.
That's right. And he's the guy with the black top on his jersey, just left of our picture there.
Yep. There is a man who had a little bit of time out of the sport and then came back and won himself a stage in the Tour de France, and then since then he's added the Belgian national title to his credits, and he's enjoying the latter part of his career. I
think looking at the face of Westerman, he's enjoying being in the lead here. It's almost as if he's just doing what he wants to do, and doesn't look to be under pressure at all at the moment. He has this very static style, Steph. He just sits there with a rather straight back, seemingly very short, compact cycling position there.
But strong. You see the top half of his body is not moving an inch. He's locked into the position there. He's getting all of the strength out of his body. A tough bike rider, especially when you think about the races that he loves and enjoys. Paris-Roubaix, the Tour of Flanders, and of course the race we've talked about a couple of times, the Peace Race, which links together the great capitals of Berlin, Warsaw and Prague.
Yes, it was a real tough man's event. I know the British riders went there. They used to lick the wounds, and not many of them ever reached the finishing line. It was a very tough race, that. But we did get one winner in Ian Steele back in the 50s. He's a Scotsman. and never got the due accolades he deserved for winning the Peace Race either.
Mancebo with the Spanish band on his jersey there, former Spanish national champion, Jorg Yats. This is David Echevarria as well from Liberty Seguros, just over on the right-hand side. Good punchy little bike rider. You can almost sense a feeling of urgency. There is the Luxembourg national champion there, Frank Schleck. I think they're looking after him this afternoon. Just looking over the other side, I caught a quick glimpse of Eric Decker as well. Decker is riding very well in the early part of this season.
Rabobank have an interesting team now because they've been strengthening all the time. There was always a team for the classics and never for the stage races, but they've strengthened the team now to do almost anything. And I think, if anything, that's what the Pro Tour has brought to cycling, is that teams now have to have men on the squad who can win any type of bike race. And for that reason, Rabobank are moving up. But they're led by Michael Bogard today. We know he's on form from his great riding in the Amstel Gold Race. And they've got the youngster now, Thomas Decker, who at last is coming through. But he is their big name for the future, I'm sure of that.
Pretty complicated, the sport right now, because there's 3 Deckers.
Yes, there
Hans,
is.
Thomas and Eric.
And we used to just have a double decker. Now we've got a triple decker. Oh dear.
Too bad, too bad. This is the end of the feeding station. Just at the back here, the rider taking on board drinks is Antonio Colom of Caisse d'Epargne. He'll be called on to do a little bit of work later on. It's rather deceptive, this style, isn't it, of Stefan Westerman? It doesn't look as if he's going very fast, but the reason is he's actually churning a fairly massive gear, and he's on the early kilometres now of the Côte de la Vecchie. 210 kilometres covered when he gets to the top, and that's about 52 kilometres still to go to the finish.
Well, Stef Westerman, second in the Amstel Gold Race, using all of that energy today to just try and draw the sting of the peloton. He'll be amazed when they do catch him, as I think they will, because look at the size of that peloton. As we continue now, this is the sort of flatlands between the big hills, but once they start coming back, they're going to be big. 54.4 kilometres, 54 seconds the gap. CSC and Sastras are still doing all of the work here as we say goodbye to Stumont.
Well, if you just look at the back end of that group, there's a lot of pain going into that group now. 3 kilometres to climb, 188 metres in altitude, and a fairly low percentage grade. But because of the pressure being laid on at the front end by Carlos Sastre, there's 1 or 2 riders now, Phil, starting to disappear off the back.
Well, there's a lot of people to disappear off the back of this group, and in the end, CSC have been doing all of the chasing now for the last 50 kilometres, and not a lot of help from anybody else. As the riders begin to crack, it's one of it looked like Michael Rogers was slipping down the back there.
Well, he was in that early morning breakaway of 26 riders. He's left a lot of energy out on the open roads.
But it just shows you how strong Jens Voigt is. He's been in that breakaway just the same length of time as Michael, and there he is again.
I don't think anybody doubts the strength of Jens Voigt. He's got to be the punchiest, gutsiest bike rider in the whole of the professional peloton.
This is a guy, by the way, Paul, who we became personal friends with, really, because he joined professional. His first professional contract was an Australian professional team with a little help from the Czech Republic.
Everybody off his wheel.
He's unbelievable. His whole body seems to be working. He's been twice voted the Cyclist of the Year. He was a fantastic amateur bike rider before he became a top professional. But he is one of the most difficult riders to beat because he never gives up.
He never gives up. He's such a tough character. Riders now starting to get shelled out the back. This is Steve Morabito, a brand new professional from Team Phonak. And look at the pressure of Jens Voigt. And the funny thing is, you know, when he speaks very good French because he rode for Crédit Agricole for many years, but when you speak to him in English, he's got an Aussie accent, mate, because he spent so much time in Australia.
Yeah, and he loves it. He's had a great career, memorable time. It can't go on much longer, but my goodness me, I wish it would. Here's the leader of the day, another friend of ours, really. Steph has made his reputation over in Australia too, in the Jacobs Creek Tour Down Under, when he came over to that race when it started. Got to like it so much, he used to come over 3 weeks before the race began. So he enjoyed the Australian summer big time.
Yep, changed his nationality because he married a young lady from Switzerland and decided that was the best thing for him. And just towards the end of last year, he changed his nationality to Switzerland, to Swiss, and in fact participated in the World Championships for them. There is Jorg Yats in second position. I think he will be doing a little bit of work for Alexander Vinokourov later on. Great position, former military champion of the world back in 1997. Chris Horner having a good start to the season. He was pretty good last week in the Flèche Wallonne. I think he finished in the top 20 in that race, and he'll be looking at getting selection for the team for the Tour de France later on in the year.
Not a bad guess, Paul. 16th.
Oh, not a bad guess.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very impressed.
But it was only 4 days ago.
See, well, that's true. And he's also had a great performance in the Amstel Gold. He was 20th in that. So he is on good form. So Chris Horner riding different colours this year from Sony Duval. He's joined the Vitamin Lotto. Another team, you see, building its men for the overall classification. I'm sure Chris, riding on form like this, we can expect to see him in the Tour de France.
Hope so. There'll be a lot of Americans in the Tour de France. There's Bettini going through. And I think that was Andrei Kashekin also riding for Liberty Seguros. He too, I think, will be looking after Alexander Vinokourov. Vinokourov making the change from T-Mobile in the winter, moving down to Spain and Liberty Seguros, and bringing his teammate across with him, Kashekin. And that is a bad sign for Stefan Westerman. 20 seconds, but by the time he turns around, it'll be a lot less than that.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to... He might make the top of the Col de la Vecchia. He might not here, because the peloton... But boy, it really has been a tough chase. We're looking at 53 kilometres here. He was gone at 91 to go, so he's been away a long time here. At one stage, he was out to a minute and a half. Made them work very hard. There's Jörg Yats going through, and just tucked in behind him, looking pretty relaxed there. Matthias Kessler from T-Mobile. He won't help until they bring back his teammate.
Basso there riding at the front, also looking pretty good, wearing number
Basso
11.
Looking good.
There's Kashekin. Always moving further towards the front.
And that was Thomas Dekker we got a glimpse of. Juan Manuel Garate, champion of Spain. Boy, there's some big names coming towards the front of this group now. This is Thomas Dekker here. Take a good look at this boy. Many people say he is the big man in the peloton in the years that lie ahead.
Winner of Tirreno Adriatico this year. Very dominant performance there. He's a great talent for the future. First time I really saw him race was last year in the Criterium International. There's the boogeyman, Michael Bogard, former Dutch national champion. Rode well in the Amstel Gold Race. He would love to win this race. Looking very concentrated here.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that Thomas Dekker, who we've been talking about now for nearly 3 years, is only 21.5 years old.
One of the great things about the Rabobank program is they take riders and develop them through. They've got 3 teams. They've got the Rabobank 3, Rabobank 2, and of course they've got the top Rabobank team, and they've got a very good women's development squad as well. They've not only invested in the professional side of the sport, they've invested in the whole section of the sport, including on the track as well.
On the track, and of course the kids at schools. They've got a school program as well. It is very much an all-round thing, and Rabobank, one of the big banks of the Netherlands, and for them it's a good sponsorship because they feel they're reaching all of their customers from school kids right through to their elite squad. Well, 13 seconds. Steph isn't going to give up. He's going to keep tempo pedaling, smiling all the way until they nail him back. It's not going to be long now. The pain will be over for moments anyway. 52 kilometres to go. Still on the climb here.
Still on the climb. Keeps looking over his shoulders, and he's a tough character. He's not going to give up. He's just going to say, all right, guys, you want me? You come and get me. And he might just try and get himself a few more points at the top of this climb, because there is a King of the Mountains classification in Liege, Bastogne, Liege, and it's a classification that carries quite a few dollars to the back pocket. And Stefan Westerman there just getting himself the points at the top here of the Côte de la Vecchia.
And there comes the pack right behind him. So he got the points, but now he's going to get the catch, I think. Still, guess who? The man that was in the breakaway with Stefan all day falls back to the peloton and still drives it along. Jens Voigt now is going to shut this one down. And the one thing is, they'll be able to speak the same language when they get together.
Beastie boy, what a strong character.
I tell you what, there, Kessler nearly touched the back wheel then of that Liberty Seguros rider. He looked over his shoulder. It could be a fatal mistake, that.
Well, there's been a bit of a split in the peloton
here, Phil. Is this Christophe Moreau?
Yeah, but I think Christophe Moreau is trying to get himself back onto the group, because this is a split in the front end of the group because of the pressure of a man by the name of Jens Voigt.
Yeah, you have. He's got an absolute split there. He's gone over the top. There's the catch. Never even looked at each other. They know each other pretty well too, but Voigt is still finding the strength to drive this race on. Jörg Yats behind him.
It's all on his own. He's done this all on his own after being in that breakaway. He obviously didn't contribute a lot of energy to that breakaway, but still, having been at the front, you use a lot of nervous energy up, and now he's actually making what could be a very decisive split in the peloton in Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
Well, he's been up front for 150 kilometres today, Jens Voigt, and even if you're sitting in, you're using an awful lot of energy. And there's the damage at the back, and a little work has to be done there. And there's quite a big peloton, I think, down the road here. Vinokourov in that light sky blue jersey with the yellow flashes. He's riding through. Axel Murk looks like he's there too.
Yep, that's Axel Murk, but the big names are all up towards the front here. There's Kashekin, Stefan Westerman just getting in, Thomas Dekker. Axel Murk's there in the lime green jersey of Team Phonak. Surprised to see him change actually during the winter months from Team Daviteman across to Phonak. I think a lot of that was to do with the rather nasty situation on the road in the Tour de France when he was in a breakaway looking for the win of the stage and the team actually chased him down.
She's beat Gilbert briefly as we look back. It's a very definite split in the field, this, and they've realised they've got this split in the field, and I think they're going to work to try and keep it away now.
There's Azevedo.
Yeah, and look at this now. This is the main back half of the split, and they're now sending the cars forward, so the gap must be building.
Well, again, it's hard to believe that is because of Jens Voigt. And that is a very illustrious group at the front. All of the big names seem to be present. I don't think anybody has missed out on this occasion. And it's good to see Ivan Basso riding at the front. Frank Schleck is always very close to the front. That is a serious selection now, Phil. That's around about 25 or 30 riders.
That's a good selection. Looking at the legs now of Jörg Jatsk, who's trying to keep things under control here and wisely take on food, because not very far away is the climb of La Redoute. We just run away from the Vecchie, we get downhill into Remouchon, and then we're on our way up. And this man continues to drive the train. Remarkable character. And he'll go until his legs just seem to come off, I think. Jatsk has done nothing. He's just letting CSC do all of the work. And now this is the head of the race, and there's still nobody prepared to help CSC.
Well, they brought in the
Look
referee.
at that split now, that's enormous.
A big gap, that's a huge gap. It's around about 20 seconds, and there is the back half of the main field. There's a lot more been dropped off as well, because when we started this climb, the Côte de la Vecchie, we had around about 100 riders. Here we've got two groups of 30, so there's a lot of men under pressure.
And the amazing thing is that Jens Voigt was in the breakaway of 26, and by his hard riding has now formed himself into a group of about 26 leaders here. Inside 50 kilometres to go, 31 miles to the finishing line of Liege-Bastogne-Liege. It's no easy route now to the finish, and it is a real difficult climb up to Arns.
That was Christophe Moreau at the front of the second group, trying to whip up a bit of pace. Interesting to see him riding in the AG2R squad. Fell out with Crédit Agricole towards the end of last season, and his contract wasn't renewed, and he was rather saddened that he learned of the fact that his contract wasn't going to be renewed in the press and not from the team manager.
How often does that happen? Well, he'll be anxious to find good form this year and to prove Crédit Agricole wrong. He'll ride the Tour de France for AG2R. We'll see how his form comes. He's obviously in the thick of the action, even if he is struggling a little bit today, but it's early days for the Tour de France, of course.
Well, these races, Amstel Gold, Flèche Wallonne, and of course Liège-Bastogne-Liège, are the first time really we get a chance to see a different kind of rider. It's after the difficult one-day classics of Paris-Roubaix and the Tour of Flanders.
That's right.
But this is much more of a climbers event. The races where the Tour de France contenders usually come out and play for the first time.
That's absolutely right, and the top Spanish contenders prefer this, of course, and the Flèche Wallonne to the races like Paris-Roubaix and the Tour of Flanders. They really don't like going there. And it's only because in the end the Pro Tour demands they turn up, they're now going, because they wouldn't go at all. They'd prefer to stay in Spain or just come down and test the legs here in the Flemish, in this Belgian Ardennes.
This is the back end of the second group, and they are just hoping they're going to make the junction. They've got to make the junction in the next 4 or 5 kilometres, because we'll speed up a fraction now as we drop off the top here of the Côte de la Vecchie. Basically 10 miles between the summit of the Côte de la Vecchie and the Côte de la Redoute, but it's only around about 5 miles of actual flat in between the two climbs. There's Azevedo at the back. He'd be a man to watch out for in the Tour de France. It's going to be very interesting as we approach the Tour de France to see which rider on Team Discovery Channel is going to be the leader. Little move here by Axel.
I think it'll be a long time before we learn that fact, in all honesty, Paul. You know, I know the Americans would cheer on for George Hincapie, but there is Popovic, and it is still a very strong team, even without you-know-who. Well, Axel made the first move to try and change the formation at the front. Didn't work out because our man's there again. Now, I know many of you watch our videos by sitting on your turbo rollers and get inspiration. Well, you don't need much more inspiration than this man here, Jens Voigt. Where does he get it from? He just keeps driving at the same speed. Anybody goes past him, he winds them in and he gets back to the front.
You can see T-Mobile starting to get themselves organised as well. Stefan Westerman still riding up at the front, and as well, he's a guy who was in the breakaway for a long period of time. Here's Philippe Gilbert also moving to the front there from Française des Jeux. He's a French-speaking Belgian rider. He'll be very much at home on a course like this. He may He may well even try and get himself over the Côte de la Redoute. Look at the organisation now. You can see a lot of same coloured jerseys riding together. All of the teams now, Phil, are starting to feel that nervous tension as we begin the approach to the Côte de la Redoute. They all know how important it is. I don't believe that Jens Voigt can keep this up to the top of the Côte de la Redoute, but certainly he'll try and keep it up to the bottom.
They all must be sitting there full of admiration for him right now, because they're feeling just how much he's hurting them as he drives on here. Never looks over his shoulder for any help. He's got a plan to do today, and that's for his team. And he'll drive until his legs drop, and then it's up to the boys to try and sort it out. That group is what? So I reckon that group's about 30 strong at the moment. Let's have a look up the road. A long way. They've opened the gap nicely. That split has developed, certainly. Oh, and that's a nasty one. Is that Philippe Gilbert?
Philippe Gilbert, just taking around the corner. He's trying to put a little bit of a gap on Jens Voigt, and all that will do is annoy the big German.
That's right, the gadfly of the sport, and he's made the move now, Gilbert. It's always unusual to see a Française des Jeux rider, a French team, employer Belgian, but the Belgian rider here is not far from where he actually lives, and so he wants to impress. Live on television, big thing in Belgium. 44 kilometres to go. Will this reshape the split again? Doesn't look like it, because they're chasing him down.
So the second group trying to get themselves organised. A little bit of panic on board there, I think, as they realise maybe the split happened here, Phil, because one guy was just suffering a fraction there, and he'd lost the wheel of the man in front, and then all of a sudden, when you look around, especially when you're on the rivet, there's a gap there, and you think, oh, is it my turn to nail that down?
Let somebody else go, and then the gap started. But it has opened up to quite a significant gap. Surprisingly, we're not getting a time gap on it on the screens here at all.
Well, if they're letting the team cars through, as they were letting the team cars through there, it's an indication the gap is starting to get up to the 1 minute mark between these two groups.
That's right. And Gilbert is going to cause confusion here now. Looks as though the Rabobank are trying to do something about this. That's a good move by Gilbert, because I think they were fully extended at the time he slipped away. It'll take a little while to right this one. 38 seconds to Group 3, so that's the spread, Paul, so it can't be that far now.
This is Gilbert. Look at the way he went round this corner. He probably knows these roads very well. I'm sure he's done a fair amount of training. Jens Voigt just losing the wheel a fraction there, trying to accelerate. You see the massive gear that Gilbert is using, though. He's a very good sprinter, this man. He, in fact, got himself a good victory at the start of the year, because he won the race Het Volk, which is normally the domain of Team Quickstep, because that's been their race very much for the last few years. And, in fact, Gilbert took off and got himself the win.
Yes, great start for the year. Won a stage of the Tour of the Mediterranean last year as well. So he's a pretty good rider. He's had 10 wins since he turned pro. He's only been a pro since 2003. Lots of time for him. He's only he'll be 24 years of age in July. So he's a young boy, a great prospect for Belgium and for the Française des Jeux team. They'll need him in the Tour de France this year, I think, because the French need plenty of publicity in their own tour. Heading towards the 40 kilometres to go mark now. This race driving on again.
The first time I saw Philippe Gilbert was a couple of years ago in the Tour Down Under, where he won himself a stage there. And one or two of the Australians a little bit upset by that, because they were caught out by his last-minute attack. I don't think they really knew who he was, but they do now.
They do now. Now, Sony Duval sending the car through there. This is the second group on the road, but judging by the way they're working here, De Vietem and Lotto have got a lot of men left in this chase group, and that's a good sign that this group might well get back together again, because they're driving. They're not at all waiting here. Wish we could get a time check for you, but we can't. Meanwhile, back to the front. Guess who's on the front again? And Stefan Westerman is number 3 in line, so even after that long breakaway alone, he's still got legs.
Well, at the moment, the Germans are dominating the front end of the main field. Jens Voigt, you see the little flick of the gear lever there. He was just changing to make sure he got it into the right gear, and he almost caught out the cameraman. Yeah. Germany in second place, Jörg Jacks. Germany in third place with Stefan Westerman. And in 4th, 5th and 6th as well with the other riders from T-Mobile. Matthias Kessler right up there as well. He'd be an outside tip to ride well in the latter part of Liege, Bastogne, Liege, because he's a very good mountain man.
Well, there is Stefan Westerman. A little bit of a puff and a blow and a quick drink as they control just about. Just going through there, number 22, that's Kessler. He's the small man on the squad. 21 is the man I think they're working for, which is Sinkovic. There's Serge Baguet, the champion of Belgium. He's having a very good Spring Classic season this year too.
What a team the Quickstep have fielded here, though, Phil, because they've got Baguet, who's the national champion here of Belgium. They've also got the Spanish national champion, Juan Manuel Garate, riding as well. But I think these champions today are dedicated to Paolo Bettini, and there's Bettini in around about 8th or 9th position there. You spot him very easily with the golden helmet.
A minute is the spread, so they've opened it up to 1 minute. This is between the two groups on the road now as they head towards Remerchon and the start of the climb at La Redoute. And somebody else is on. I think it might be Christophe Moreau has just launched a flyer down the road there.
I think it's a question of panic. These riders all know, Phil, they've got to get back onto the group if they want to have a chance of winning Liège-Bastogne before the Côte de la Redoute. Because not only is the Côte de la Redoute a very difficult climb, it's a very narrow climb, made much more narrow than it is normally by the huge crowd that are waiting for these riders to turn up. And it'll be interesting to see if the police have allowed the motorway to be used as a parking lot again.
Which is, it's sort of been forced on them over the recent years of the Liège-Bastogne-Liège. It used to be a free-flowing motorway, but so many people stopped. The risk of an accident was high, so they started to use it as a parking lot, as Paul has said. Now, just seeing Frank Schleck there, well, he's got his big win, hasn't he, last week in the Amstel Gold Race. And he's paying very close attention to what's going on here. He's not actually going to the front, which means I think he's the protected rider today. He might well have Basso helping him out as well. That peloton, it's either getting bigger or I miscounted, because there look to be quite a few riders here. There's Garate tagged onto the back as he wisely takes a little drink here just at the moment. This is the gentle run down. You know the road's better than me, Paul, but I think we're heading towards Remerchon.
We certainly are. This is the gentle run down. We're about, I would say, 4 or 5 kilometres now from the entrance into the town.
Ruben Labato, the Spanish rider, just sitting off the back of the group, surveying. He's probably counting them. He can tell me how many there are when he's finished.
Yeah, but it's a lot more than 30 now. I think one or two riders did recover, but we've still got a very large group off the back of around about the same number, 30 or 40 riders. But the main contenders will be very happy with this situation, because what it means is there won't be a complicated approach to the start of the Côte de la Redoute. Just in the bottom there, you caught a glimpse of Remerchon. And that gives the riders an indication of just how close they're getting now. Lamprey taking over at the front end of the main field. But Jens Voigt says, no, lads, that's my position. I still want that. I want to take this field to the start of the Côte de la Redoute. But I tell you what, watch out for Damiano Cunego. He's right in the middle there.
Yeah, see him.
This is his first serious outing of the year as well, and he's another man who I reckon is on form. Had a very difficult season last year with mononucleosis, but it seems to me now that he's got over that.
Yeah, that's a glandular fever, and really, if you do contract it and you've got it bad, it lasts you with you for about a year. So,
well, and
it takes
remember
time.
how long it took for Tom Steels to get over that. Almost put an end to his career.
It did.
And only recently did he start to come back to some kind of form.
But sadly, years have caught up with poor old Tom now, the big sprinter. Now, in the last couple of the last 400 or 500 metres, that lead is shooting up to 8 seconds. It's built up 9 seconds as we speak. 39 to go. And not far from Remerchon, when you see that motorway, how they built that, I'll never know, but it's a magnificent structure. As we freewheel down towards Remerchon now, we'll cross the main road and we'll disappear up the other side, and that means you're on the slopes of La Redoute. 38 kilometres more or less to go. A minute 13. They've taken 13 seconds on this descent off the chase group.
Well, over the bridge, a left and a right, and then all of a sudden La Redoute faces straight up in front of you. It almost smacks you in the face. It's so steep once you get to the top. And as you can see, the riders crossing the bridge now, stretched out into a big long line. I can't believe it is still, well, it is still Jens Voigt at the front. And Stefan Westerman, almost a big smile on his face. I don't think those two guys are going to survive the Côte de la Redoute.
This is it now. We're going to hear the bang in the commentary position when these two hit the mountain of Remerchon, because they can't drive up the mountain. It is 25% this climb. It is a brute, and there's always a big crowd. There's not a great population in this part of Belgium, but what there are will watch this race, you bet. And most of them will be on the slopes of La Redoute for sure. There's the swing across now. It's just a little bit of cobble section of road here too as we go under the bridge and then hit the climb.
There they go. There's the left-hand turn. There's the right-hand turn. And just as they move away from the buildings, then all of a sudden they're into a little bit of pasture land, and then it's on the early slopes of the Côte de la Redoute. A huge climb with a great reputation, and in the past it's certainly been the foundations for many a great victory in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Thomas Dekker riding at the back now. I think he's suffering a little bit with the distance. Let's not forget, as you said, Phil, he's a very young rider. Still got to learn that extra 50 kilometres. Once you, it's a big change riding a 200-kilometre race to riding a 260-kilometre race. It's an extra hour and a half, but it's a lot more required on the body.
And those red jerseys at the back, by the way, that's the new colours for Team Barlow World. Changed the colours from blue and white this year, and Schuler was the rider sitting right at the back there. But we're now looking here as they come onto the climb. This is the swan song of Jens Voigt as he drops back, and this is the death throes, I think, of Stefan Westerman, although he really is hurting them, because once they start the climb now, it'll just slap them in the face. That peloton has got to be 55 riders big now, Paul. There are riders getting across the gap. We're just not seeing them come. I can almost feel the pain in the legs now of Stefan Westerman. I think that's it.
I think that's a question of boom, boom, and I'll go to lights. Look how slow he's going now. He really gave everything to that point. Actually, it's a bit of a surprise to see Baguet at the back here in the red, yellow and black jersey as the champion of Belgium. I thought that he would be a lot closer to the front, looking after the interests of one Paolo Bettini.
Oh, I've just spotted poor old Steph going out of the bottom of our picture. There's the details for you. It's an average of 8.4%, but believe me, in parts it is 25%, just on 2 kilometres of the climb. On the right shoulder now is the car park. It used to be an express motorway. Just look at all the motors parked on the road over there.
Yeah, look at Danilo De Luca over on the left-hand side in the lime green jersey.
Just dropping off the back, Eric Decker. Riding out his season. Now there is the car park we are talking about. It is amazing how its pure people power has caused that road to be closed. It never used to be closed, but the people parked anyway, so now they're making it safe for all.
There's De Luca in the middle. Looks very good, doesn't he? He's in fine form. Valverde over to the left, and here's Jens Voigt.
Poor old Jens. Feel for him, everybody, because we do. This guy's an absolute hero here. Now, as he slips off the back, he's still trying to race as well. He will not let them go because he'll dream that they'll all slow down over the top and he'll get back. Well, minute 35 the gap. He's really stretched out that lead for the second group.
Well, that's what Jens Voigt would want, but I tell you what, there's going to be a little bit of an explosion here in the main field, because I can see a group of 10 or 15 riders going clear over the summit.
I have to say, in part here, watching the breakaway here, we're looking at the Crédit Agricole rider. This is Dmitry Fofanov. They're not really attacking this climb, Paul. It's tempo riding, this.
It's tempo riding, but it'll get steeper as they get up towards the summit there. But as you said, there was going to be no attacks. It looks like there was a move on the right-hand side from Team CSC.
Gianpaolo Schuler, the Italian on Barlow World. He was on the back at the bottom. He's off the back now, halfway up the climb.
This is Basso looking over his shoulder, looking to see where Frank Schleck is. On his wheel, Valverde. There is Paolo Bettini in the blue jersey there of Quick Step.
He's a
Michael
cunning
Bogard
rider.
is not too far off either.
He is a cunning rider, Bettini. He's not making his move. He looks as though he's decided he just wants to see how it all develops here at the moment. The Euskaltel Euskadi rider, Iker Kamano. He's slipping off the back now. Basso's number 11.
There's Vinokourov moving up. He's in the top 10. Bettini's taking over now. Paolo Bettini. This would be a good spot for Bettini to make a move. It's starting to get to the steepest part of the climb. You can hear the noise. It really is a tunnel of noise for the riders as they get up towards the summit of this climb here, the Côte de la Redoute. That's Kessler over on the right-hand side. Look at this move. This is Cunego.
Then it's Cunego who's gone, and Bettini's having to pick up the tempo here. He was almost tempting somebody to come and have a go, and there's the answer. It looks as though Damiano Cunego, former winner of the Giro d'Italia, is giving it his best shot on the climb here. It's a good time to go, because if you're suffering now, you're off the back, because once it's a bit of a floss plateau at the top of the La Redoute, then you make a right turn, then you start a little descent. It's a chance to put home your advantage. But look at this, they're all hanging in.
Well, there is no split. This is rather a surprise to me, because I would have expected to see 6 or 8 riders moving off with an acceleration like that, but all of the big boys are here. Cunego there on the front. There is Bettini, Kessler, Alejandro Valverde. Not very far away, Alexander Vinokourov. There he is, just at the bottom.
I think the big boy's Bogard, isn't it?
That's Michael Bogard there in the orange jersey of Rabobank. They're all here. There's Danilo De Luca.
Schleck is still sitting there. He's in the championship, red, white and blue colours, champion of Luxembourg.
He looks good.
He looks very good. And Danilo De Luca also looks pretty cool at the moment, riding on his shoulder. There's a Barlow World rider there. That'll be Aristoia, I think.
Well, there's the gap now. There's a slight split.
Astolo, I get those two confused.
A slight split now starting to go, and you can see the damage is starting to be done here. They're all battling to try and get onto the back, but it's still, for me, a very large group. We're a long way from the top, and there's still the possibility of another acceleration.
And the flag flying there is the Basque flag from northern Spain. There's plenty of Basques in this breakaway, mostly on the Euskaltel Euskadi team. Not too sure who this little Phonak rider, but I'm pretty certain it's Martin Perdiguero, because he's the one with the dark skin and the small sprinter's position, but amazingly he can climb.
He's a good climber. Phonak looking for the performance here. This is the back end of the group, and look at the crowd here. Another move.
Is that Chris Horner?
It looks like
it's got
Chris
the
Horner.
style of Chris, those long arms and the straight back, and Chris Horner's giving it a dig now. Well, that is one of those cheeky moves here. He's watched all the big names have a dig, since they've just eased and gone.
It's a good point to move because he knows that the big boys are all looking at each other. It's Alexander Vinokourov is making the move in person, followed there by Paolo Bettini. We're now starting to get a little bit of a group forming here. Now we're down to 12 or 14 riders. But Chris Horner has flown the coop. Now, if they pause for a moment, Horner can find himself with a 30 or 40-second advantage, but he's not going to get it.
No, they realise Chris is a man to mark because he's riding extremely well, and he's shown us this year he's going to have a good spring too. Horner looks across, see who's brought him back. T-Mobile, who've done a lot of work today, and they're not going to lose a grip of this race just yet as they try to bring it back together. We've got Bogard fourth in line. Perdigero is second in line right now.
Horner looks good there.
Horner looks very, very good. I'm not sure who this tall rider is here.
Michael Bogard
T-Mobile on the front, but Bogard's tagged on. I think it's Sinkovic, in fact, who's now setting the pace, which would make sense. Valverde is there, taking a drink, stretching his back. Is Vinokourov.
There's a lot of riders coming back.
I can't believe this. They've all, well, we've lost at least half of this bunch, but this is a big group.
It's still a big group for this stage of the game.
And this is the rider at the back here, Jorgjats.
So that is rather an interesting group.
De Luca's got control here. These are the chasers, 33 kilometres to go.
And in fact, they've actually closed back a fair portion because they're on the same climb. It is probably around about the 1 minute mark. Not quite hitting it the same as the riders at the front.
This could be a big bunch again. It is amazing in the modern times of Liege, Bastogne, Liege, they cannot break the spirit of the peloton. And it's happening again today.
Oh, it's a tough climb, this.
The Crédit Agricole rider is René Poriol, Frenchman.
Actually, whenever I see the Côte de la Redoute, it always makes me remember a time when you rode up the climb here and had to do a stand-up at the top.
I did a stand-up at the top. It was in the days of Andy Hampson, and because they wanted it absolutely correct, I had to climb it 16 times. But I'll be honest, I only went out of sight of the camera and popped back in again. Because by the time I got to the camera, I didn't have any breath left to do the words.
Got your heart rate up a bit.
But I did earn the admiration of the Motorola team who were with me at the time as I continued to attempt to do the words towards the end of all those takes. 33 kilometres to go and a little bit of general regrouping here, which I'm extremely surprised, but it looks to me now as Chris Horner, number 85, and Martin Perdigero, number 92, are now a little bit further down the pack, but this is getting back together. There's Frank Schleck watching everything. What a great season he's having. Here comes an attack.
Well, there's Kessler over on the right-hand side. Then Horner's moved straight back up to the front once again, and he's looking for the move here this afternoon.
Well, we've got a leaky gas rider here who is trying to sort it out. I'm not too sure who it is, but it could well be Nibali. Or is it Pelazzotti?
Pelazzotti. Quick flick of the wrist there.
I should have recognised all the glowing, flowing locks there. Franco Pelazzotti has started the move here. This is the false flat I was telling you about as you come over the top of La Redoute, and gradually we'll get to plunge down. Just joining at the back there, 232, is Pedro Arentunandia, Spanish rider on Barlow World.
And in the orange jersey there is Sammy Sanchez, and just behind him, in fact, is Ivan Basso. A moment ago he was whipping up the pace at the front. Now he's just suffering a fraction on the back, doing the work as an ultra domestique here this afternoon. We're over the top now of the Côte de la Redoute, a little bit of flat before the riders get down towards the next climb of the day in the town of Sprimont. It's not much of a climb really, Sprimont. I don't know why they categorise it after all the riders have been over so far. It's only around about a kilometre long, and it's very much a false flat.
It's an awkward climb though. It's dead straight. You can see everybody on it. I think probably because of the tactically where it drops into the race. That's the right turn now as we leave La Redoute behind us, and this is the main road which will lead us to the Sprimont. And they've got a bit of descending to do. Basso has gone from strong to the back of this group, and I'm not so sure I wouldn't be too concerned about that now. Maybe his race was done on La Redoute.
Well, he's put a lot of work in for the team, and, you know, psychologically that's a very difficult thing. Well, it's all back together, brought back together by Paolo Bettini there. Gold shoes, gold handlebar tape, and golden helmet. Italian, wearing the gold colours as the Olympic champion back from 2004. I think it's a bit of a pity that the Olympic champion is not allowed to wear the Olympic bands on his jersey, because it should be some sort of recognition, even if it's only a small patch, that he should be allowed to wear.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it'll come. It was only in Atlanta when we had our very first Olympic Championship Open, when the pros got to ride back in 1996. Pascal Richard, the winner then, and the British rider Matt Chandry was third, and I think it was Rolf Sorensen who got the silver medal.
And Frankie Andrea was fourth.
And good old Frankie Port just off the medal board, which is a real sadness, because Frankie was one of those guys who almost made it in the world of cycling. He never, ever packed in a Tour de France. He's a tremendous bike rider. But this group now, it's still very much a big group, but there's no indication of just who has the strength here to break this race. We're descending now towards the climb of Sprimont. And sitting at the back, little Martin Perdiguero. He's had some surprising results over the years, this rider. You see iShares on his shorts there. Well, there's big rumours now that this team is changing sponsorship this year, and it will pass over to iShares. They've been looking for a couple of years now for somebody with the big bucks to take the pressure off Phonak, and it might well be this season.
Well, it's a good company to look to the big bucks for, because it's an investment company owned by the Barclays Group. And in fact,
That's right. If they haven't got the big bucks, they're doing a bad job, right?
Well, a lot of the top executives actually went across to the Tour of California in the early start of the season to just have a look at the event, and they came up with a nice experience there, because a young man by the name of Floyd Landis got the win for them.
Yes, and even last week in the Amstel Gold Race, they took a lot more executives over to watch that race too, so I hope they got a good impression.
This is Christophe Moreau. Now, these guys are looking to me now, Phil, as if they're separated by around about 2 minutes. Now, this is a very nice move. This is Rodriguez.
Joaquim Rodriguez, he's on the Sprimont, has decided to give it a little go here. Now, this is a good move, because this will take the pressure off Alejandro Valverde, who's also in that chase group, as he starts to go. 30 kilometres left to ride now, and little Joaquim Rodriguez hits the Côte de Sprimont. It's only a short climb, as you can see, a mere 66 metres above sea level. We don't start at base either, and it's only 1.4 kilometres, but it is dead straight, really, and they're going to see him on this climb.
They'll see him all the time on this climb, but he had a very good start to the season. He won himself a stage in the Paris-Nice around about stage 5, and funnily enough, he won stage 6 as well a couple of years ago, so he's a man for the early part of the season. Tough little road, this. You can see the road surface is not smooth at all. Very difficult to try and reduce the rolling resistance.
So we're looking now at Rodriguez here. Maybe he could do with a little bit of help here from the boys. I'm not sure he's going to get it, but he could need it. At 29 kilometres to go. And we've gone into the S's a little bit now as he comes away off the Sprimont, back down to this other main road as he turns again towards the finish in Liege. But the end of the race, before we get to the last climb, is on wide open highway. You've got to have a good lead if you're on your own.
You certainly do. They're making their way down towards the Côte du Sprimont now, but after the Côte du Sprimont, there's a very difficult climb. 11th climb of the day at 248 kilometres covered, the Côte de Sartillement. And for me, that's where the action is going to have to take place, because I'm surprised, Phil, to see how big this group is after the Côte de la Redoute.
Well, I am too, Paul, but it does appear to me today there is no one singly strong person. Now we've got Michael Bogard here, has a big reputation at this time of the year, and he's trying to break the field up.
The boogeyman, they call him in Holland. There is Frank Schleck, champion of Luxembourg, a title he took away from Kim Kirken, and here is the lone leader now, Joaquim Rodriguez. He is a very good performer, this man. Excellent in the start of the season. Used to ride for the Once team, moved across to Saunier Duval, and now this season moved across to the Caisse d'Epargne Lille Baleares team. He's got himself around about 8 seconds. That's only around about 75 metres, not very much.
Well, he's rolling on a big chain ring here now. He needs a little bit of help. Bogart trying to get away off the front of that race. Well, the last 3 years, Bogart has finished second and twice third, so he really likes this race, and he usually combines it, as always, with great results in the Amstel Gold Race. Second in 2004, second in 2005. As we know, he was third just a week ago. And again, Bogart has got the form here, but he's got trouble as well, because they're all around him. Look, he's now setting the pace again.
Strange tactical race now. Everybody's trying to get away on their own. A little bit too far to go. I think
Bogart's gone.
Make the move. Yep. He didn't really attack there.
No, he just rode off. They just stopped working behind him. And Michael Bogard is off in search of the leader. Look at this.
Well, that's a good move, and he just rode to the front rather fast, looked over his shoulder, saw he'd got the gap, put his head down and decided, I'm going to keep going for this.
So Michael Bogard, and in fact I didn't see Rodriguez caught, but obviously he was, Paul, because that's him again coming away with it. I didn't see him caught at all.
No, I think he just about got caught just at the point where Michael Bogard decided to attack. Now this is a nice situation here. This is just about the right place to move.
Two riders then going clear. Michael Bogard and Joaquim Rodriguez are ahead of the field here at 28 kilometres to go. Well, we've moved down the road a ways now. We're 14 kilometres from the finish here. Jörg Gatz is driving on the peloton as we head up this little climb. But I can tell you the breakaway is still there. And those two riders are still clear.
And Ivan Basso looking pretty comfortable at the front end of the main field. Danilo De Luca not too far away either. Chris Horner is still in this group.
Valverde.
Yep. There's a lot of work being done on the front here by Liberty Seguros. In second place there, Paolo Bettini. A couple of years ago, Paolo Bettini actually made a move here on this exact climb, and he may well be looking for that here as well.
I'll tell you what, when the camera pulls back, you will see that a lot of riders who are left on La Redoute have now rejoined yet again. There's been no real change in the race format, except a lot of riders have got themselves back onto the rear of this peloton. They look a little bit the worse for wear, one or two of them, but it's now a very big group indeed. Number 123 there is Sylvain Chavanel of the Cofidis team. It's good to see a Frenchman in the mix towards the end, I must say. Now back up to the men who are doing the driving. This is Michael Bogard. There's the time gap, 42 seconds. Joaquim Rodriguez here, willing to work at him. He's a born climber.
He certainly is. He's been around for a couple of years. He led the Vuelta a España a couple of seasons ago, but right now they're getting themselves to the top here of this very difficult climb. Climb number 11 of the day. The Côte de Sartillemont, the top there, they'll turn right. This is the move by Bettini.
Oh, he's got to make a move soon. 42 seconds, the gap. He's knocked one off straight away with just a sprint up the climb. And Bettini here, who's won this race twice before. Whoa, his face is set now. He knows all about the finish. This was the man when he won it first time. He picked up the phone and rang his friend Michele Bartoli and said, I just won Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And Michele Bartoli is at the finishing line today.
Well, I tell you what, I don't know if you noticed who was on his wheel there, but the man who reacted immediately was Alejandro Valverde. That's the corner. They're on a big, wide road now. There is Bettini. He's halfway across the gap, and he must have blown Valverde away because Bettini has now flown the coupe. He's now looking at a very long, fast descent fill into the outskirts of Liège, across the River Meuse, and then, oh, excuse me, boys, but the Côte de Sartillemont, and that, Saint-Nicolas, I should say, and that is nasty.
It is. As we cross over the river and head up the other side, it's not long now before we'll pass the famous stadium for football people here, which is Standard Liège. And Eddie Merckx, once a great footballer, by the way, but he chose cycle racing, which I think was his best decision. But look at the speed now of this man. He's going it alone. He must sense, you know, Paul, that back in that peloton, there isn't a lot of firepower left.
There's not a lot of firepower, not a lot of organisation. That's Ivan Basso in second place there. He's looking pretty good. He's looking over his shoulder to see the position of his men before they get themselves organised and try to chase down Paolo Bettini. Just 24 seconds for the two leaders. There's a move by Vinokourov as well on the left-hand side.
Alexander Vinokourov makes his move. That looks like Chris Horner is also getting in the mix again as he takes the wheel of Vinokourov. Chris has had a great ride today. He's been right at the head of affairs when it matters most. Sinkovic bringing up the chase here now. Barlow World still got there with the former world champion in the group. Asta Loa.
Well, there you can see that's the move by the champion of Kazakhstan. Looks over his shoulder. He notices he's only got about 2.5 meters off the front end of the group. So better part of valor is to sit up and wait and try and go again. This is good for Paolo Bettini. Bettini is probably halfway across the gap now, Phil, with 12 kilometers to go to Michael Bogard and Joaquim Rodriguez. But it's still a very difficult thing to do, to nail back a gap like this on this fast descent into the outskirts of Liège, because once the road starts to tilt down, they'll be looking at almost 50 miles an hour.
Well, Bogard has the enviable record, third, second and second in his last 3 goes at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Now he's racing for the win if he can get it.
This is Goraz Stangelai on the front.
He's been told to go front. And, oh, dear me, a bit of aggro now because the Rabobank rider who's got Bogard up front wants the camera bike out of the way. I can understand that.
Yeah, but it's amazing. Even if the motorbike is not right in front of the group, it's amazing how much that encourages the rider to accelerate. It's like putting a carrot in front of a donkey, and I think it's probably come halfway across the gap now to Paolo Bettini there, because look at the time gaps. 19 seconds to the leader, 30 seconds to the peloton, but the fact that it's in a strong late line like that indicates they're now starting to whip up the pace. I think we could see a very strange situation here, Phil, where it all comes together at the bottom of the penultimate climb.
And then it'll be a free-for-all, that's for sure. Well, Bettini was just ahead there, and I think he's about to be caught. He has been caught. And they're all together again now. Gorash Stangley bringing the team, or the race, back together again. Still got those two boys clear. Here they are. Bogard, those big bronze legs, working double time here now. Rodriguez, unless it's just a quick... Oh, I was about to say he's not working, but clearly he is working. I apologise to Joachim as he now gets up into the lead here.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to work at this part of the course because it is a big, wide boulevard, a massive speed drag down to the valley of the Meuse down in the bottom. And that's why you can see Rodriguez getting into that profile position to try and keep the pace up at around about 80 kilometres an hour. Michael Bogard now must be wondering what is going on. Has he got a chance? They're looking at half a minute, and they need to get to the bottom of the final climb of the day, the Côte de Saint-Nicolas, with all of that 30 seconds advantage if they don't want to get caught. Because I tell you what, when we move into the Côte de Saint-Nicolas, it is very much like Little Italy. You will see in the heart of Belgium flags of Italy, because in this part of the world a lot of Italians moved up in the period just after the Second World War to come and work in the steel mills.
And the Italians have won this race 11 times. Of course, the big winners are Belgium with 57. But looking there at little Rodriguez, Paul, you were at Paris-Nice, and he got a good stage win there.
He certainly did. He was very aggressive, and he was. It was the 5th stage that he won of Paris-Nice, and that was very similar to the 6th stage that he won in Paris-Nice a couple of years ago. There's the football pitch of the Standard de Liège, a very famous football pitch, and there is the River Meuse. You can call it any which way you want. It's the River Meuse here in the French-speaking part of Belgium, cross the border into Holland, and it's the River Maas.
MAAS. Right, back to the two leaders now, and Rodriguez here scurrying like a scalded cat. And the bigger figure there, look at the way he's jumping at it now. Michael Bogard, they know this is their move. There won't be a lot of energy left by the time they get up to the last climb now, because they're trying to hold off the race when it is at its height here. And they are probably racing at around about 45, 46 kilometres an hour.
It's still locked in, though, which is good for the two leaders at 28 seconds. Just about 5 miles to go to the finish. And in that 5 miles, there are actually 2 climbs. The Côte de Saint-Nicolas and the final climb of the day, the Côte d'Ons. And that is the climb that takes the riders up to the finish line. It's about a kilometre, but it is such a horrible climb to negotiate.
Michael Bogard, a man who has won a lot of bike races, but he's always really been known as the nearly made it man, with the 2nd and the 3rd places in the big classic races. And he's going to have a problem with Rodriguez should they get to that climb together, because Rodriguez might be the better finisher.
Well, he's a good climber, Rodriguez, and it was a very hilly stage that he won in Paris-Nice. But he is still working now. There's a lot of work. That's Gorash Stangley on the front, Slovenian rider on Team Lampre, and that's an indication to me that a man by the name of Damiano Cunego is in pretty fine form. He's feeling good this year, come back from that illness, and now I think he's trying to set himself up for the possibility of a win here. But I tell you what, Phil, after 256 kilometres in the saddle, the Côte de Saint-Nicolas is not a lot of fun.
We'll just have a quick count of those, Paul. There's 30 riders in this chase group here. 26 seconds behind the two leaders, so a lot of riders have gone off the back again on this desperate chase to bring back the tandem, the Spanish-Dutch tandem on Belgian roads. The gap is 26 seconds. It's a tenuous gap, this. You can't say in any way it's all over here. The only good thing is these boys are now in the narrow streets rather than the main highways.
Well, I tell you what, they're certainly not going slowly. They're taking all of the risks around these corners. They're losing time, but not that quickly. There you see the Italian flags at the side of the road. Bogard looks over his shoulder, swings across. It's your turn now, my mate. We've got to get to the bottom of this climb. They know this climb. Most of the riders stay in this area for the whole week after the Amstel Gold Race. They move down from Holland. They ride on the course. They reconnoitre the course. They've just finished the Flèche Wallonne a couple of days ago, and they most certainly will have every last centimetre of this approach to the Saint-Nicolas in the back of their minds.
This is the chase, still being led by Gorash Stangley as he keeps the pressure on, and hopefully it will close this gap down. There's the Italian flags beginning to appear in the houses now. There's no Italian in the lead at the moment, just a Spanish and a Dutchman.
Well, Goraz Stangelai, the first time we saw that man, in fact, was in a very good bike race in Australia. The Commonwealth Bank Cycle Classic finished in Canberra many years ago, and that was his last race as an amateur before signing up for a professional career. Big organisation there. You can see them starting to line up at the front. There's a lot of riders in there as well from Team Phonak. There you can still see Jorg Yats. One or two riders, I think, riding a little bit too far to the back of this group. There was Pelizzotti a little bit further back. This is Michael Bogard here now on the slopes of the climb, and you can see he really is looking for this one. Huge crowd turning out.
111 metres now, the Côte de Saint-Nicolas, and here we are amongst the crowd, and it doesn't end at the top either, because the last climb to the finish doesn't count as far as the climbs count, but it will count as to who will win this race. 6.2 kilometres to go. Now, how good is Rodriguez here, or indeed how good is Michael Bogard? Because the field behind, they know this is their last chance, Paul, and they're going to try and pull it back.
This is Kashakin moving now for Liberty Seguros. Maybe he's going to be the top man from Kazakhstan here this afternoon. Kilometre to the summit for these riders, and what a kilometre it is. There's Danilo De Luca at the front end of the group. This is a beast of a climb. You can see Liege in the background. There is Damiano Cunego in around about 7th or 8th position. The big names are moving forward. I think the position here now of Michael Bogard, Phil, he's just having a little look to see what the legs of Rodriguez were looking like, and he's going to get to the steepest part of the course. This is where it really hurts.
This is where it hurts. It looks to me as though they're slowing down here, and they can't afford to do this. Look at the gap coming tumbling down now. If they look over the shoulder, they're going to see these guys. How many times on this very bend have we seen the field cross to the leaders? And it is happening again. Kashakin leading the charge. Danilo De Luca happily to dance right behind him here. He shut it right down. Chris Horner isn't far off the lead either.
Yeah, Horner's right up there, but look at the gap at the top there. 11 seconds, the two leaders. Now Danilo De Luca's making the move. The killer, they call him, and he's maybe got the gap here now, because you can see gaps starting to appear. There in about 5th position was Paolo Bettini. You can almost physically see the difference in the speed between these two riders at the front and the men behind. Last time check we got, Phil, was 11 seconds, but I reckon round this corner it's all going to be in the same straight.
And the Italian flags don't come much bigger than that one there, and the crowds are the largest they've been all day. Cheering Rodriguez and Bogart. This looks as though it might well be Martin Perdiguero who's having another little go. A surprising rider, this. He's got some good wins under his belt, and he's reached them. Now that's going to give us a whole new ball game.
Well, he's back on, and he's going to go straight past if that's what he thinks the tactics are, and he does, and that's the best move to make. Michael Bogard looks across and says, where did you come from? Well, I'll tell you what, Michael, he came across with the rest of the group who are not that far behind him. Still a couple of very steep corners before they get to the summit, and it looks like Rodriguez now, Phil, is starting to pay for the effort.
This is such a hard little climb, this round, this long series of bends here. They're out of the saddle, they can't do anything but just sprint all the way up it as we pull back. Martin Perdiguero, great piece of riding there. Now, is that Patrick Sinkovic for T-Mobile now? The hard work being done by his teammates. He's trying to reach the leaders.
De Luca's still there, though. He's looking for the win himself. He wants to make the acceleration. This is Rodriguez. In front of him, Bogard. In front of them, Perdiguero. But the rest of the group now starting to come across.
And this is Sinkovic who reaches them first. Now, this is the most interesting ride. The team leader. This is why Stefan Westerman stayed out front as long as he could today to soften them up so this man could win. Patrick Sinkovic is doing the best he can here. He's joined the leaders.
Join the leaders. That makes 4 men now. That's 5 men, because 101 is Alejandro Valverde. He's come across to make it 5 riders at the front end of Liege, Bastogne Liege here this afternoon. They've got around about 6 kilometres to go to the finish from the top of the climb. It says 5 kilometres on the graphic, but I tell you what, 3 kilometres of this is uphill.
Well, Sinkovic, a 5th place in the Amstel goal last week, 5th in the Flèche Wallonne a few days ago. Surely a high finish is not far away for him now. He's reached the leaders. This is going to be a dramatic end now, and our Cameron bike is getting a little bit close. We've got to be fair. He's allowing this race really to have a false image at the front. Perdiguero is the man who's been drawn away.
5th place rider there is the man who wears 101, and that is Alejandro Valverde. Frank Schleck has come across there in the red, white and blue. He's the dedicated man here this afternoon for Team CSC, and there was another rider just getting onto the back of the group, but I didn't quite ID him here from 3,000 feet.
Now, I've got a feeling now that Valverde has got right up behind here. There's Perdiguero, Rodriguez.
And isn't it funny how all of a sudden Rodriguez has found a little bit of strength? He was tiring before, but now he's seen the situation change. His team leader has come across to the group, and he'll fight find a few little bits more energy to push himself again.
Boy, what a select group this is now. And the other rider who's tagged on the back, it looks to me as though it might be Chris Horner, who's got across. Damiano Cunego has reached the leaders. Every man for himself. Here, Basso has got there, Bettini, Danilo De Luca. They've all got one on the number, Paul. And joining also there is Kashikin. Well, he started the trouble on the climb. He's hanging on, I think, Andre is.
Big names are all moving to the front. They're all scrambling, looking at around about 2.5 miles, 4.2 kilometres to go to the finish. Rodriguez has found something special. He's happy with the presence of his man Valverde. He must be suffering like a dog there, Michael Bogard. There is Cunego looking nice and comfortable. Ivan Basso, I think, will have to turn it around here and try and do something to look after the interests of his team and, of course, Frank Schleck. But all the big names are here, Phil. No, hardly anybody has missed out this afternoon.
Well, these kilometres are flying by now. We're at 3 kilometres to go. We're looking at Danilo De Luca. Our camera bike may have been told by the race referees to get to the back and not ride at the front, because that's where he's shooting the pictures from right now. Chris Horner. This has so often been an American bike race, and we've got an American in the break again. Chris Horner has made the move, and he's been looking like doing it ever since we got to La Redoute. De Luca must be a worry to everybody. He's got to the leaders and he's sat at the back. Bogard has dropped to the back, voluntarily or been forced there, we're going to find out. And the climbs aren't over yet. It's not a serious climb, but these guys are right on the limit of their day's racing now.
We'll be very careful at a time like this. It's a little bit of false flat, nasty road. Look at the surface. It's all broken up in the outskirts of Liege here. At the front here, the two riders from Caisse d'Epargne. There's a move by Frank Schleck on the far side, covered by Horner.
Yes, and covered by Kashakin. Horner's first to reach him. Kashakin is right behind him. Rodriguez still kicking wildly. Cunego, Patrick Sinkovic. This is incredible. Now comes Valverde, followed by Perdiguero. Schleck has stretched them, but he certainly hasn't broken them. And in fact, Horner's having a problem reaching him here.
Well,
look at this ride now.
This is another acceleration here. You can see this is a good move by T-Mobile. That was Kessler trying to get across to Luca, Phil, riding very sensibly there, just sitting at the back.
I think that was Sinkovic, actually, Paul. The camera was right on the nose there. He dropped away a little bit. But this is the group that's heading into the finishing line now. De Luca still waiting at the back, and I'd be worried about that, because that man could pack a sprint finish up to the line. This is not an easy finish, and it calls for a little bit of craft and guile as well. Basso is sliding to the back. This group has got big again all of a sudden. These riders have tagged on at the back. Schleck is the rider at the front. So well the winner of the Amstel Gold Race, and in at the kill again in a classic.
Well, there's Bettini keeping an eye on affairs around about 6th or 7th position. You can see Rodriguez now. He's just got to bury himself with the team leader, the team captain, because he knows that Valverde could finish it off for him. But there's a lot of riders. You see Sinkovic moving forward here. He's looking for a little gap, a little mistake by somebody. Cunego doesn't want anybody to move. Lots of tension now. Chris Horner is going to put in a fine performance here, Phil, because he's almost guaranteed with a top 10 finish. But this is another... That was a crafty move.
Yeah, that's a crafty... That's Rodriguez gone, and it is Martin Perdiguero who's come from the depths of that group to go after him. So Perdiguero reaches him. He's a good sprinter. He'll take Rodriguez at the finish. But this is an interesting move again. We are just inside a mile from home. This is the little climb, the Côte d'Ance, which will decide it today. And it is going to be a very difficult finish.
Michael Bogard coming across. He's made the effort to nail them all back there. You can see the kite across the road. That's where the riders know they've got 1 kilometre to go to the finish. Everybody wondering who's going to be the next to make a move. Somebody has got to take the risk here of trying to get off the front of the group. Rodriguez again on the front, just digging himself his own personal grave here this afternoon, because he knows that his man can possibly finish it off. Michael Bogard has put so much effort into being away here this afternoon. If he wants to win now, Phil, he's got to try and take the risk of attacking with 300 or 400 metres to go.
These men are totally committed. There's no one man head and shoulders above the other riders in this breakaway now. So the one with the brain on his shoulders is going to win, and that's an attack, and that's Sinkovic gone again, I think. Or is it Kessler? It is Sinkovic.
Sinkovic inside the Flamme Rouge. And look at this. The response has come from a man who is looking to win the double Giro d'Italia and Tour de France this year. Ivan Basso, he's ridden for the team, and now he's in a winning position.
If Basso takes this today, that will be a surprise. I felt as though Basso's looking for his form rather than sitting on it right now. He's been at the back a lot, but you know, these guys, professional bike riders, will try and see what happens. And sometimes you win bike races by doing that. Bogard has got up into 3rd place, the man who always finishes up on the podium of Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
I tell you, wouldn't you like Michael Bogard to get himself the win here this afternoon? He really deserves it. He was in the early breakaway with around about 26 kilometres to go. A little bit of
shaky move there.
It was a shaky move. Now there's a move on the left-hand side of the road. Frank Schleck has gone, and that was let go there by Ivan Basso, but Bogard is all over it.
Look at Bogard. He chases everything, and Schleck is the man who's thrown down the gauntlet. Bogard is the man who's come and brought him back. Sinkovic has tanked onto the number 3 rider here. This is no punches pulled at all now. Cunego, who I think fancies his chances today, has gone again. Valverde's right behind him. We saw what he did the other day in the Flesh Wallon. You've got to watch out for him in the sprint.
You've got to watch out for him in the sprint, but you've got to watch out for Paolo Bettini, because Paolo Bettini has been very crafty so far. He's followed all of the moves, but here's another move coming by Ivan Basso. Basso riding a brilliant ride here this afternoon. I tend to agree with you, Phil. I think he was looking for his form, and I think he still is looking for his form. He's trying to set something up for Frank Schleck. Now there's another move by Sinkovic.
Sinkovic wants to pay back the great work by Stefan Westerman today, but look at his face now. I'm not sure how much he's got left. Valverde has come right up, and Bettini's the big danger in 3rd. I think it's Kashikin who's been dropped off the back of this group. Bogart is there. Cunego, Martin Perdeguer, they're lining up for the finish now. This is the long wide boulevard, race to the line, and Sinkovic goes, but watch out for Valverde. This is looking like the double, and they had to go round Bettini, had to go round Sinkovic. A second up, Valverde takes it. He gets the double. His magical, classical season continues. I think Bettini was probably 2nd, and Damiano Cunego will have come home there in 3rd. That's the way I saw it anyway.
Yeah, I think that was what it will be, and I tell you what, Chris Horner wasn't too far away, and this is the remnants of the rest of the group, and they're just crossing the line, cruising along. Is the man who has to get a very big thank you this afternoon from Valverde. Rodriguez rode his heart out over that last 5 kilometres.
He did, and he's still got a fine finish as well. This is the chase group coming in now, but, you know, it wasn't exactly a sprint, that, Paul, was it? It was the man that was the strongest one.
That was the longest sprint. It was more than a sprint, really. It was a drag up to the finish line. And Valverde, true sprinter that he is, timed it to perfection. And I think Bettini was caught out a little bit because he got boxed in for a fraction. But I don't think that would have changed the result, because not very many people were going to get round Valverde then.
And there's the congratulations. Frank Schleck, the winner of the Amstel Gold, saying well done to Alejandro Valverde, who's done the double. You know, he's the first man to do it. It's not a big thing to do these days, because David Rebellin did it a couple of years ago. And before him, it was Moreno Argentin. But even so, he's a Spanish rider, and no Spanish rider has ever done this before.
Just look how cool Valverde was there. Takes a quick look over his shoulder to see who was on his wheel, then launches the sprint. Look at the face on Michael Bogard. He really tried hard to win the race here this afternoon, but already at this point, Valverde's got the gap. Bettini is basically paying comeback. Valverde looks over his shoulder, cruises to the line. Great win for Spain.
Unbelievable. The first time a Spanish rider has ever won this. The nearest until today was Iban Mayo. He got 2nd in 2003. But not just has Valverde won today, but the double is his this year. The Flesh Wallon and Liège. That's when the sprint went. Sinkovic tried his best. There was a little bit of a hook here that came from Sinkovic. I don't think it was intentional, and it didn't affect the result either. And Bettini getting 2nd, Cunego 3rd. Sinkovic will get 4th. Great result. Continues a great run in the classics for him. But he still lacks that big win, and that's what he wants.
That's what he wants. That's what he's looking for. The big winner of the week has got to be that man there, though, Alejandro Valverde. The kick, in fact, I don't think Paolo Bettini had it. He really didn't get boxed in. I think he saw the gap going. He went across to the wheel of Sinkovic for a moment and then decided he'd got a little bit of energy to come up. But
these are desperate men. They're all fully committed, and they were just anxious to lunge for the line.
Chris Horner coming across the line there, by the way. That's 8th place for Horner. That's a good ride by him. He's had a good week.
He had a great week, and he looks so good today, and it's good news for Chris. He came over, you know, a few years back, rode on Française de Jeu. He never made it over here, went back to the States, became a star again, and he returned over here, and what the rewards. Well, he's had a fantastic time. Great stage win in the Tour of Switzerland last year. Well, as we look down here on Liège, let's have a look at the results. Valverde ahead of Bettini, Cunego, Sinkovic, Bogart. Perdeguer rode a great race. Schleck 7th today, first the other day. Chris Horner, as Paul said, gets 8th. Danilo De Luca 9th, completing the top 10. A name, of course, we're going to be talking about a lot as the months unfold, Ivan Basso, as he tries for the double of the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France. I wish him well in that. But today, this was a bunch of men 100% committed, and they got to the finish on sheer guts. Alejandro Valverde waves to the crowd here. This is the man that beat Lance Armstrong last year to Courchevel summit in the Alps and then gave up in the Tour de France. I wonder what he'll do this time around.
Well, he gave up in the Tour de France because of a knee problem. I see him being the possibility of a serious challenge at the Tour de France in the month of July. Although Miguel Indurain said if he wants to win the Tour de France, he needs to improve his time trialling ability just a fraction. But I tell you what, he doesn't have to worry too much about his climbing and sprinting.
Well, the man in the brown jacket far left, that's Bernard Hinault, 5 times the winner of the Tour de France. Remember that this is the same organisation that puts on the Tour de France, so Valverde has certainly made a big impression on them over this last few days of classic racing. A win in Flèche Wallonne and now a win in Liege, Bastogne Liege. The Spanish cyclist has never done the double before, and a Spanish rider has never won this race before either. It's been a fantastic few days for Alejandro Valverde, and it now brings his total number of wins to 4 for this season. He's ready for the Tour de France. I hope you've enjoyed the coverage here at World Cycling Productions. For Paul alongside me, I'm Phil Liggett. We're saying goodbye for now.